framework of grooming your kids into believing their absolute anti-human propaganda that they push every single day. All right? If you ever wondered how such a deeply unpopular actual mindset survives in society, it's because they actually just groom your kids.
May Day activists actually think chaining yourselves together can get you higher wages. And sadly, that wasn't even the most idiotic aspect about it, as the May Day marches featured ants and an inflatable Trump, combined with some anti-ICE messaging.
Palestine. There's always a Palestine flag. They know the whole thing is a psyop.
With teachers refusing to work on a Friday so they can line dance and demand nonsense.
That's right. We pay taxes so that our government can pay teachers to groom your children and also take days off to protest our government while preaching for Palestine. Palestine! With the ultimate Trojan horse. People actually give a shit about Palestine, let alone know where it actually is. Because it's not real. And also because, you know, they're like such unbelievable villains. I don't care about any travesty anywhere on the I don't care about this one where the retards started a war and lost. Like, are we serious, man?
We're out here on International Workers' Day, marching alongside thousands of teachers.
That's right. You're taking a day off of school. They're still getting paid by your tax dollars, so they're taking a break from grooming kids to make cities unlivable. Isn't that nice? Isn't that awesome?
And we're currently fund our schools, pay our teachers what they need to do, and stop the cuts in public education.
Bro, we need to eliminate like public education, man. We need to fucking we need to switch the fucking ads to that shit. I don't understand why kids are growing up to be leftists. I mean, it's not like leftists are having children; they're aborting their children. Why are kids? Well. If you can't have kids, I guess you're gonna have to vampirically introduce kids into your system.
Nothing says you deserve more money than teachers taking a random weekday off, lock the streets, while nearly half of their students are not proficient in reading or math.
That's right. I think we should totally do that. They're like, yo, we're gonna take random days off to interrupt the traffic and just make life a little worse for everybody. But while we are teaching, we're gonna make sure that they know about Palestine and queer liberation. All right? They don't need to know how to read. That's not important.
Of course,
To be
they're
fair, Mohammed didn't know how to read, and things worked out really well for him.
for socialism.
What would you say to those families who had to make last-minute adjustments to get their kids taken care of on this day?
I understand and I
Oh my God, she's even wearing grooming glasses. It's crazy.
appreciate that it can be somewhat off-putting. However, I do know that if their students are in public education, that I would hope that they understand that we are doing it for their children.
Man, isn't that beautiful? They're grooming their children for the parents. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that lovely? That's right. They're taking a day off from work so that the parents need to scramble and figure some shit out to actually take care of their kids that day because they want to disrupt traffic in their city as a favor to them. Isn't that beautiful?
We're not doing
And our taxpayers are paying. Our tax dollars, we're paying for this shit.
our government jobs. The
That's right. You should be fucking furious.
taxpayers fund. So while we're out here dancing, we expect the tax-paying parents, again, to pick up our slack. As these schools aren't about educating the students anymore, they're about validating the teachers' activism and
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah.
Now, over in New York City, May Day is about getting ICE out, but also eating the rich.
And Palestine. Let's not forget Palestine. Dude, it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing when they protest for Palestine. Because it's like, it just completely makes it totally obvious that all the other things that they're preaching for aren't actually real either. You know, if there was actually these atrocities going on in Palestine or whatever, there are also atrocities happening in Nigeria, in Sudan, in Iran. They don't care about any of that shit, obviously. They only care about what their overlords, I don't know, whoever funds the school in Qatar, in China, actually tells them to fight for it. They don't actually give a shit about oppression or anything like that. This is all a gigantic grooming campaign. That's one. And two, they're going to pick, out of all the squabbles on the entire planet, they're going to pick the one where they started the war and lost miserably. They're not actually going to fight for any... This is not about Palestine. This is about destroying the West. All right? It's actually just about destroying the West and indoctrinating a generation into hating Western civilization. That's what it's all about. It's not actually about oppressed people. It's not about anything. They use words and slogans to manipulate you for apparently it fucking works. The targets here are the children, the next generation that's going to grow up groomed on this ideology.
As this march will somehow
Not an American flag in sight.
stop the nukes.
Oh, they have a sign saying abolish nuclear weapons. I guess that makes them very empathetic, kind people. Yeah, this isn't going to actually do anything. Yeah, they're not going to be abolishing nukes.
And recording social media stuff inside some random store.
Once and for all, making a statement. So, party's over.
Look how they bravely harass people's daily life. Isn't that nice? Don't you love that? These are the empathetic, good people.
Party's over, guys.
Do any of these dweebs actually think they're helping? As never before in recorded
I think they're funded. I think a lot of them are funded.
history has a dictator been defeated by some idiot in a mall with a megaphone. As New York City has really just become an adult daycare for
Oh, New York City's just a PvP server at this point, and they elected they elected the warden of the fucking circus, you know, complete retard, Islamist, moron, communist who's trying to import the entire third world. No, this is going very well for them actually.
imbeciles as they chain themselves to the stock exchange. But the NYPD
That'll save
quickly
the world.
yanked their chain, both figuratively and literally.
Oh man, that dude flipped.
We won't stand for billionaires working hard and making a living when they could instead be giving us all of the things they work for free, while we do nothing to contribute to society but make things that work for everybody.
That's me. That's what I stand for. I am a liberal white woman that had everything given to me my entire life, and I will not stand for people working for a living. Also, Palestine.
They're ruining our country.
Yeah, sure. You do realize the billionaires all vote for Democrats, right? Every single, all the billionaires will go for Democrats. You look at where the billionaires are located, they're all in California and New York, the bluest cities, all right? They all run for Democrats every single time. Until Elon Musk, they've all been Democrat donors. Like, it's unbelievable how retarded these people are. Like, the PSYOP works so well. Oh, they're chanting. I guess the billionaires are gonna go now. Alright, slandered. Bro, we gotta do something about these people, man. We can't keep putting them back into the public.
Crazy to see the new journalist to activist ratio, as after USAID lost their funding, the U.S. Agency for International Development, but after that got dismantled, what used to be mass riots on behalf of Democrat movements now barely seem to see a fraction of the activists. And even though the May Day marches in LA seem to have a decent turnout, as their parade conveniently walks past their homeless encampments, they now demand citizenship.
It's so fucking transparent, dude. It's so obvious. We invaded your country illegally, but we would like to actually have the right to vote for abolishing your country, please. Thank you.
Okay, we are here to fight for non-migration. We don't...
Ray, let's bring foreigners that don't even speak English into our country so that they could scream in broken English about how actually our country needs to just absolutely collapse and let in infinite retards from the third world.
Leave us here, and then we have a more protection.
I just feel it's really important for everyone to come together.
Anti-ICE.
God, I love how they make believe this is about unity.
Activists, take a look. They've taken over the checkout counters here at this Home Depot. There are signs that say
They don't even have like signs in English.
out of the Home Depot. They've essentially stopped business.
So they chose
That's a crime.
May Day to bring everybody together to protest low wages and the unaffordability of Democrat-run LA, to co-opt the left's movement of mass amnesty for illegals or flat out allow illegals to vote. It's just interesting how every
It's so obvious what the grift is, and it's so frustrating watching people fall for it. It's so incredible. It's like they hate our country, they hate our government, they hate Western civilization, and they will do absolutely anything to stop it. No morals matter to these people.
single movement from May Day, saving the environment, to Roe v. Wade, it all can...
And then they always say, "Oh, you're just racist. Why don't you want them to vote? Don't you want their lives to be better?" I actually don't care. I just don't want them in our country. All right, I'm sorry. You know, I would love it if they would have a beautiful, prosperous, happy life where the fuck they came from. And no, it's not racist to acknowledge that actually I love America, I love our culture, and our culture is better than yours. Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, it's racism. I don't care what you call it. Your words mean nothing. Your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer. Our culture is better. It is. So therefore, migration should work out in a way that makes sure our culture is what it is, right? Not importing enough people to water it down. We're not diluting our culture. We're not replacing our culture. Our culture is fucking awesome, and yours are not as good. You want proof? You're trying to move here, and we are not trying to move there. That is enough said. There's the evidence, okay? Empirical fact, we have 0 Americans trying to move to Somalia, and we have every Somalian trying to move to America. All right, empirical fact, your country's shit. All right, sorry, don't want to be that guy. Our culture's just better. All right, proof, you're trying to come here. All right, so the reality is we don't want our culture to be diluted by infinite retards from the third world, so we are not going to be bringing you here. It's that simple, and you're gonna leave, and we're not gonna be giving you the rights to vote. And your quality of life is very nice, and I hope it's great wherever you came from. It is not on my shoulders to make sure your quality of life is better, actually. And I don't want to be that guy, but it's really not my business at all. And this isn't not having empathy. I have empathy for my country which is currently getting raped.
Can only be solved by handing the Democrats more power to do what they couldn't do the last time they were in power.
That's right.
And even though the LAPD briefly gained they were quickly pushed back.
Bro, we need to shut this shit down, man.
When these activists tried to swarm the federal building, the feds stepped in to make arrests.
Hey, let's go, dude. Put him away. Get rid of these assholes.
And remember, May Day is supposed to be about workers' rights, but LA made it about ending ICE.
All the things are just the same for these people. All the things are just identical, aren't they?
Granting mass amnesty in something the Democrats have been long suspected of, illegal voting.
Local leaders pushing a proposal that would allow non-citizens to vote in LA city elections.
Introduced a motion to change the charter. That motion calls for amending the charter to allow the city council to expand voting to non-citizens for local elections like mayor and city council.
They pay their taxes. Many of them are homeowners, but they don't have a say over the policies that affect their children.
That is correct. They should go home. Oh my God. Like, it's my fault that they don't have a say on the policies that they've invaded and raped. I don't care. Oh my God. These people this is such diabolical levels of manipulation. Like, this is just grooming on a societal scale. Manipulating people. But of course the poor abuela that invaded this country 20 years ago should have a say on what her and all of her grandchildren that are now American citizens, because birthright citizenship is a complete fucking scam. Of course they should all have a say on how our country runs. Absolutely not. Of course they shouldn't have a say. obviously, wherever they came from fucking sucks. All right, so I don't want them to incorporate that into our policy. This isn't some sort of universal utopia. This is a country where we're American people here, and American people come first. Before every single illegal alien that wants to come in here and rape our land, I actually don't care.
Families on any given day.
How convenient that the thing they pretended to never want is exactly what they're openly pushing through in deep blue cities. That same thing that if it was actually allowed would hand the Democrats every single federal election forever.
That's the goal. That's always been the goal. It's always just been about power. This is communism. This is why communism can never possibly exist without violence. Communism is inherently a revolution against the system, because how the fuck are you going to convince all the people to give up their property to the government, which is what communism is, that no one actually owns shit, and the government owns everything and distributes it under a dictator. Because communism cannot exist without violence, and it cannot exist without a dictator on top that distributes the shit and controls the force. All right, and ultimately, this is what we're watching. We are witnessing a Bolshevik revolution in real time happening on our streets, in our country, every day. And for some reason, a lot of people just don't care that Trump is actually trying to stop it. A lot of people think, oh, well, Trump is compromised by Russia or Israel or somewhere, and therefore it's bad. These people are a fucking plague. They really are.
This was supposed to be
Tucker Carlson calling Trump the Antichrist? What the fuck are you doing, man?
about workers' wages that would be perpetually depressed if you import millions of more workers, all while ignoring their actual enemy rolling right by.
Here comes somebody to steal somebody's job. All right. Next up, we're gonna. Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, whatever. That's not my time. I want to welcome to the podium next.
The sheer irony of entitled idiots skipping work on a weekday to say they deserve higher wages, watching this autonomous robot working his unpaid 24-hour workday that he will never complain about. This is like...
That's right. I would replace the fuck out of all these features for AI. AI won't crew my kid. Well, I don't know about that. But yeah, no, I'll be real here. Like, these are the most replaceable people on the planet. They are actively harming our civilization.
Like watching the dinosaurs see the first comets across their sky, as the working class is facing an extinction-level event, and they're too busy being turned into useful idiots for the Democrats to realize students are already switching to classes online, having their papers graded by AI that they wrote in AI. So now is definitely not the time to take a random day off to demand higher pay.
You mean to tell me you expect teachers to care about the well-being of children? Are you insane? Like, this is the revolution. They don't care. They don't teach kids how to read. They teach them about protesting for Palestine. They teach them about queer liberation. This is what they're teaching them about. They're like out there talking about safe butt sex. All right, I don't give a shit, man. But you think these people are trying to fight in the best interest of children? They're promoting abortion. They're promoting the castration of children. They don't care. This is a power grab. Obviously, it's so frustrating that people are like being like, if they actually cared about children, they don't. They don't care about anything. They are immoral psychopaths. And yes, it's a broad stroke that I'm just saying all the leftists are psychopaths. No, some of them are just retarded and groomed. Some of them are just retarded groom victims. The other ones are immoral psychopaths. All right, I'm a very open-minded guy.
And illegal voting rights. So if you appreciate my concise, light-order commentary on the tragic status that is today's reality, hopefully I've earned your subscription.
Yeah, this dude's great. I love his videos. And honestly, I'm really enjoying the mass wake-up of people on the right to realize that the left actually just wants to fucking kill you.
Fox News alert, astonishing.
Anyway, again, understand the grooming that is happening.
Michael Franzese is now a high-ranking member of an organized crime family, the Colombo Mafia family, and was recently charged with racketeering, extortion, loan sharking, and the investment of mafia money in legitimate business.
Every day you're waiting for a call. Could it be tonight? Could it be today? You don't know. Dress up in a suit. Be prepared. You don't know because they don't tell you in advance, because that's a night you need to be very secure. You don't want the FBI or anybody else or any law enforcement knowing what's going on that night. So you don't know until the last minute. Then I get the call on Halloween from Andrew. Wasn't that in the ordinary? Hey, I need you downtown. Wear a suit. Be here in the afternoon. Okay. Nothing out of the ordinary, but every day you're anticipating. Just happened to be that was the night. Halloween night, 1975, 50 years ago today. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. Always very good, very blessed on this end, my friends. And as always, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that, and especially today. Why is that? Well, today is Halloween, and it's a day that has significance to many people. It's a day of trick-or-treating, and kids go out and dress up in costumes, and some adults do that too. My whole family enjoys doing that. But it's a different day for me. It's a day that has tremendous significance because it was a major turning point in my life. It was Halloween night at about 11 p.m. that I stood in front of my former boss, Tom DeBella, and took a blood oath of America. It was a night that my finger was pricked and some blood fell on the floor. I cupped my hands. They took a picture of a saint. There was a Catholic altar card, put it in my hands and lit it aflame. It didn't hurt, it burned quickly, it was merely symbolic. And it was a night that Tom DeBella looked at me and said, "Tonight, Michael Franzese, you are born again into a new life, into Cosa Nostra. Violate what you know about this life, betray your brothers, and you will die and burn in hell like this saint is burning in your hands." And it was an oath I took very seriously back then. I take it very seriously today, even though I don't consider myself a member of that life anymore. But today there's even more significance because today was the 50th anniversary of the day, the night that I took that oath. It was Halloween night 1975 when I walked into that room. And people, there's a lot of significance to that because when I look back in my life and I realize really how fortunate I am, how blessed I am today to be here sitting in front of you and talking to you, there's major significance in that because just about everybody I knew, every made guy especially, during that time is either dead or in prison for the rest of their lives. And that's no insignificant matter. I can tell you that. And tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about, what got me into that life. I know some of you have heard the story, but it's a little bit different today. I promise you that, because I guess there's some soul searching involved in this with me. Because I understand what I was involved in. I've talked about this life quite a bit, and I don't glorify it. I know sometimes people think that I do. I don't glorify it. I left the life. I saw a lot of damage in that life. I caused a lot of damage in that life. So it's nothing to be glorified. Do I talk about it? Yes. Did I have friends in that life? Yes. Did I see a lot of bad things go down? Yes. Was I involved in a lot of bad things? Yes. And today, for some reason, I think I owe it to my viewers. I want to open up about some things that I haven't really talked about before. So, people, I never wanted to be part of this life. I didn't aspire to be part of this life. I got into the life because of my dad, because my dad was in trouble. He was given a 50-year prison sentence, and there really was no way out for him. Losing all his appeals. My dad was framed. I'll take that to the bank. He was convicted of a crime he didn't commit. Even though my dad had done some bad things, we all know that in the past, we were mob rats. But I got into the life to help him. That was it. I didn't aspire my whole life to be a mob guy, even though I grew up in it. I knew all about it. I watched my father go through a lot of trouble. I seen him go through 2 trials. I seen him in prison. I visited him in jail. I seen him on trial for murder. I was in the courtroom when they took a wheelbarrow and they had cement blocks in there with chains for a body that my father allegedly ordered to be killed that washed up, on the sand in Queens. I seen it all. I went through it all. So I wasn't a stranger to it. Did it scare me? Honestly, no. My father was a part of it. I loved my dad, so it didn't scare me. I hated law enforcement back then. I hated them because I saw them as harassing my dad. So my reason for getting involved in that life was because I loved my dad and I wanted to get my dad out of life. I wasn't born, in my view, to be a mobster. Some people were. You talk to, you see other people on YouTube. They tell you all the stories. Some of them talk about it with pride. Hey, I was a part of this. I try not to do that. Hopefully I don't come across that way because I don't mean to. Even though I talk about some good times that we've had, obviously I have a lot of knowledge and experience about it. I do, just part of it. But you know, quite honestly, when I look back, it's an evil lifestyle. The mob life, the gang life, Cosa Nostra, mafia gangs, they're evil lifestyles. And the reason I say that is because of the damage it does to the families of members of that life. I'm going to get into that a little bit. But let me go back to that fateful day when I sat with my father in Leavenworth Penitentiary. We were in the visiting room. It was shortly after Joe Colombo was assassinated at an Italian-American civil rights rally. I was very close to Joe. He was kind of my mentor when my dad went away. He helped me out, a couple of times when I got cancer. And Joey had gotten shot. He didn't die on the spot. He lingered for about 6 or 7 years, mostly in a coma, in and out of it, and then passed away. And I was only 12, 13 steps away from that when that happened. And it was an eye-opening experience. It was the second time in my life that somebody from that life that was close to me had been murdered. And it was tough experience. And Michael, why didn't that just blow your mind? Why didn't that make you want to stay out of that life? Again, it was all about helping my dad. So I go to see him in Leavenworth, and I didn't understand, Dad, what happened? Why didn't he kill Joe Colombo? I wasn't even listening to all of it again. And he tried to explain it to me. He said, I don't want you hanging out that element. I want you away from the guys. Go to school. You're going to be a doctor. This is what I want you to do. But at that point in time, after walking that picket line, they were picketing the FBI because they were Italian. They were harassing Italian Americans. Meeting a lot of my dad's friends, speaking to Joe Colombo, hating the government even more. I said, Dad, I'm not going to school anymore. You're going to die in here. You're 50 years old. You got a 50-year sentence. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. Well, he was upset. And he argued back and forth with me, but he knew my mind was made up. I was a pretty headstrong kid. And I'll never forget, he said, okay, son, but if you're going to be on the street, you're my son. I need you to be on the street the right way. And he looked at me, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this on YouTube, but he looked at me and he said to me, I got to ask you a very serious question. And I want you to be honest with me. You got to be honest. Either way, whatever the answer is, you got to be honest. Hey everyone, yeah, it was 50 years ago today, Halloween night, that I took an oath and became a made man in the Colombo family. It seems like a lifetime ago, but today is a special day because we're launching our fruit wines, all 4 of them. Our cherry, our pomegranate, our blackberry, and our strawberry. Great wines, and you can get them now for the holidays. People are really loving them, they're really enjoying them. So you can start with Halloween, go right through Thanksgiving and Christmas. So click on the link below and put your order in now. I know they're going to go fast. They're flying off the shelves, but we're excited to be able to offer it to all of our customers now. So thank you for tuning in, and let's get back to the Halloween video. And I said, Dad, ask me the question. I'm not going to lie to you. And he looked at me and he said, son, if you ever had to kill somebody, could you do it? I thought about it a minute. I didn't just fire off an answer. I wasn't trying to impress my dad. I really thought of it. And I said, Dad, under the right circumstances, yes, I could do it. And he looked at me and he said, son, that's the right answer. And I want you to go home. I want you to wait for somebody to be in touch with you. I'm going to send word downtown. And he said, I'm now proposing you into my lifestyle. Cosa Nostra. And that was it. He didn't run it down for me. He didn't say, this is what's expected of you. That is a secret life. A lot of people think when you take that oath, you take an oath to lie, steal, murder, kill. No, that's not the oath. Do things like that happen as a result of that life? Yes. But that's not the oath. The oath is the oath of silence, omerta. That's what it means. And if my dad was anything, he was a good soldier. He wasn't going to violate that oath even with me. He knew I had it in me. He liked my answer. Go home and do what you can. That's all he said. And I didn't question him. You know, I love my dad so much. I figured, hey, he's not going to do anything to hurt me. He's going to tell me the right thing to do. I said, okay, Dad, whatever you want. That's what I'll do. This is how this life started for me. Again, I didn't grow up wanting to be a wise man, even though I was around it all the time. Other people, yes. Sammy Guevara will tell you that. He idolized the guys on the street. He grew up in Brooklyn. That's all. I grew up in Brooklyn also. But different. I don't know why, you know? Maybe because I hated the government so much. I don't know why. Can't explain. But that's not what I was into. But yeah, Dad, this is what you want? I'm ready. Whatever I got to do to help you. 2 weeks later, a captain in the family picked me up, took me to see the boss. At that time, after Joe Colombo was shot, Persico took over, basically. But he was in jail, and Tom DeBella was the acting boss. Tom's a good old guy. Long time in that life. He was a longshoreman. A long time in that life. And Andrew Russo took me to see Tom. And he sat with me and he said, Mike, I got a message from your father. He said you want to become a member of our life. Is that true? And I said, yes. If that's what my dad wants, that's what I want. And he looked at me and he got real serious. He said, I didn't ask you what your father wanted. I asked you if that's what you want. And I said, yes, Tom, that's what I want. He said, okay. He said, here's the deal. Listen up. Pay attention. I said, okay. He said, from now on, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're on call to serve this family, the Colombo family. That means if your mother is sick and she's dying, and we call you to service, you leave your mother's side and you come and serve us. Because from now on, we're number one in your life before anything and everything. When and if we feel you deserve this privilege, this honor to become a member, we'll let you know. You understand? I said, yes. That's it. Now I'm proposed. I'm official. I'm a recruit. I got to earn it. Andrew Russo turned to me that same day. I loved Andrew. Passed on now. Tom has passed on now. Loved Andrew. And he looked at me and he said, you be here tomorrow morning, wear a suit. That's how it started for me. I was 21 years old. And for the next 3 years, I was in kind of like a pledge period where I had to do anything and everything I was told to do to prove myself worthy. Now, you people that know me, you know I don't talk about certain things. People, let me tell you something. I don't have immunity. I didn't go into a witness protection program. I did not cooperate with the government to that degree. Did I talk to the government? Yes, we know that. But I didn't cooperate to the degree where they were willing to, you know, put me in a witness protection program, because I was not about to put people in prison. Bottom line, not going to get into that. We've spoken about that before. That was it. So for the next 3 years, I was on call. Did I have to prove myself worthy? Yeah. Am I going to talk about everything that I had to do during that time? No, I can't. Other people can. I can't. It's been a long time. 50 years. And going back, while I was a recruit, we're talking about 54 years. When I was making my bones, so to speak. But people, look, you know, I want to be as honest as I possibly can with you, because it's just how I am. I try not to tell you anything if I don't know it to be a fact. If I'm telling you I'm assuming something, then I'm going to tell you I'm assuming this, I don't know for a fact. But if I know for something for a fact, I'm going to tell you. And look, for the next 3 years, every day of my life, I lived in violation of both God's laws and the laws of man. I mean, look, you start to get that criminal mind fairly quick because you're around other criminals. You're around other people. Did they regard the law? Did they respect the law? No, they didn't. Because we thought that the law was corrupt. I grew up believing the law was more corrupt than guys on the street, because I saw them frame my father. I saw them harass my family. So that's the mentality I grew up with. It was a distorted sense of view, but that's who I was. It was innate in me. That's who I was. So when I was asked to do something that was illegal, I didn't have a problem with it. I really didn't. And people, look, I'm going to tell you this, and please understand what I'm saying. That's a violent life at times. You all know that. And if you're part of that life, you're part of the violence. And there's no excuse. There's no escape, I should say. No escape. You're told to do something, you have to do it. You got to prove your value to those people. You got to prove your worth. You got to make them think that, hey, you know, this guy is capable of doing this. And now that he is doing this, well, He's put himself out there. He's committed this act. He's put himself out there now. So he's got stuff to lose. Crazy way of thinking, but that's how it is. So I go through 2.5 years, and you know, it was at that time that they were opening the books. There was an expression across all 5 families in New York. The books were closed, meaning they weren't bringing any new guys into the family. Allegedly security reasons. The only time they were able to bring a new guy in is if somebody in the family, one of the families died and they replaced it. Otherwise, no. But in the mid-70s, they opened the books. Opened them up. Bringing guys in, they wanted to build up the ranks again. So I fell into that during that time. There were guys waiting 20 years, ever since the 50s, to become, you know, a made guy. They were waiting that long. A lot of the older guys waiting that long. But when the books opened, that was my time. Now, did they move me up? They sure did. Out of respect for my father, because he asked for that. He said, I need somebody. I need some help. I need my son. And they respected that because my father had a lot of respect. My father was a good soldier. He was very loyal to the family, and they knew that. So yeah, but I still had to prove myself. They weren't going to do that much of a favor for him. If they thought I wasn't worthy, they would have said, hey, your son is not going to cut it. So I had to prove myself. And throughout that 2.5 years, a lot of stuff went down. Let me put it that way. And yeah, I did develop this criminal mind. There's no question. And I thought it was okay. And then comes that night. Every day you're waiting for a call. Could it be tonight? Could it be today? You don't know. Dress up in a suit. Be prepared. You don't know because they don't tell you in advance. Because that's a night you need to be very secure. You don't want the FBI or anybody else or any law enforcement knowing what's going on that night. We don't want that. So you don't know until the last minute. Then I get the call on Halloween. From Andrew, wasn't that in the ordinary? Hey, I need you downtown, wear a suit. Be here in the afternoon. Okay. Nothing out of the ordinary, but every day you're anticipating. Just happened to be, that was the night. Halloween night, 1975, 50 years ago today. Well, we go to Anthony Columbo's catering home, the El Doro, it was called. And that's where this took place. There were 6 of us there. Now I can mention the other names. And we went into a room individually. And I'll never forget, the boss was seated at the head of like a horseshoe configuration. That was Tom DeBella. The underboss and the consigliere were to his left and right. And all the caporegimes, we had about 15 in our family at that point, were alongside of them. And I walked down the aisle. It was a very solemn ceremony. Dimly lit room. They wanted you to understand the seriousness of what you were getting involved in, because it was serious. And I walked through the boss, and I held out my hand, had a knife and a pin, cut my finger, blew some blood, fell on the floor. Standing in front of Tom, he told me to cut my hands. I did. Took a picture of a saint, Catholic gold card, put it in my hands and lit it aflame. Burned quickly, like I said, it was merely symbolic. And he uttered those words to me, tonight, Michael Franzese, you are born again. Every Christian out there knows the significance of being born again. That night, I was born again. I was born into a criminal lifestyle where every day of my life, I lived in violation of both God's laws and the laws of man. Took the oath. Tom kissed me on both cheeks. Andrew did the same. And I was exhilarated. Finally, I'm part of something that my dad is part of. And not only am I his son, but I'm bound by blood with my father now. I was totally exhilarated. It was amazing. We went into a room, all of us, after we all took the oath. We had a banquet. And I'll never forget, we were sitting there. And little Jojo Vaitako, who was a friend of my dad, who was so proud of having me be made that night, that he asked to be there. And Tom and Andrew allowed him to be there, because normally the soldiers don't attend. I want to keep this secure. And I'll never forget, Jojo comes in with a brown paper bag. And he goes over to Tom DeBella, the boss, and he says, hey, boss, should I give them all their bag of money right now? And it was sarcastic, because everybody thinks you come into that life, and all of a sudden they're handing you money. No. Not that way. The other way around. You're making money for the family, and Tom made that very clear that night. You gotta prove your value in
Hybrids
that
Absolute. Hybrids Absolute watched 230 consecutive streams and sparked a watch streak.
Damn, you're coming up on 250.
So here I am, people. I'm a soldier, and I was
I almost got my frigate. As a matter of fact, I might have it already.
10 years. My dad did.
I don't know. I'm just making sure I got enough hardwood to.
Going back, you know the story. Came out at the age of 100 in 2017, the oldest inmate in the federal system. And then he passed away in 2020 during COVID. I believe he died of COVID early on, very early on, before they even knew what COVID was. So now here I am. I'm a soldier in the family. And people, look, I can tell you this. There were a lot of things that I did during my time in that life that I was very uncomfortable doing. I was very uncomfortable. But I took an oath. I said I was going to obey the rules. I was going to obey the orders that were given, handed down to me. And even though I was uncomfortable, I did them anyway. I did. It was almost like you step outside of yourself. I'm not comfortable with this, but I got an order. I got to fulfill it. I took an oath. Now, is that wrong? Of course it's wrong. There's no justification for committing sins. There's no justification for doing things that are wrong just to say, well, I took an oath. It was the wrong oath, wasn't it? But I took it. Now, I had an idealistic view of that life. I felt good. I felt it was honorable. I was part of a brotherhood. I got your back. You got mine. This was important. It meant something to me. It really did. So I said, okay, I'm doing the honorable thing. I'm following an order. And it was justified what I was told to do. People, look. You don't go around in that life killing random people, regardless of what anybody says. And you know the deal. There are the Roy DeMeos. There are the Greg Scarpers. There are the DeSimons. They're different people, a different breed. But that's not what we do ordinarily. Yes, there were guys like that. But not all of us.
Come on, come on, come on,
A
come on.
lot of us were not like that. We
I'm
might do
excited for the
something, we're
frigate.
told to do something. Okay, how do you justify it? Well, listen, we were told straight out, if we break the rules, we can pay for it with our lives. And we were told straight out, if your best friend breaks the rule, and he's got to pay for it with his life, you might be the one called upon to do it. We accept it. Part of the oath. Play by the rules, don't break them, and you'll stay out of trouble. Now, is that true all the time? No. Guys were put in a bad situation for whatever reason. Maybe jealousy, maybe money, maybe a power.
I still need 120.
So did guys die
linen
when they
fabrics.
shouldn't have died? Yeah, I could say that. Absolutely. There were guys that I know that I felt really bad about. I didn't think it was justified. The life, people. That's the life. Was everybody bad in that life? No. No, I won't say that. I've said this before. Why do good people do bad things? Because they felt they were doing the right thing at that time, even though it was a bad thing. Sometimes your mind can be screwed up. We took an oath. We thought it was honorable at times to do the wrong thing. Is it wrong? Yeah. It's a distorted view, a distorted way of thinking. I said that early on. But that's the view that we held. And that was it. But remember, not all people that do bad things are bad people. Some people have good hearts and still do bad things and regret it afterwards. But there's some people that just have a cold heart. I've seen evil. Trust me when I say that. I've seen evil. I saw a lot of death in that life. A lot of death. And it's ugly. And it's horrible. A lot of people that I knew were gone. And it was tough. It was really tough. So here I am. I'm making a lot of money. I don't have to get into all that. 1980, the boss, Carmine Persico at that time. I was an acting captain for my father, had to be. My father was on parole, kept getting violated. He made me his acting captain. I acted in his behalf. Whenever I had to sit down or something that involved him, of course he would counsel me. Of course I would talk about it with him. That was respect. And I was an acting captain for him for quite some time. And then I become an official captain in 1980. Now, let me tell you this. I didn't need to be made an official captain. I was fine dealing as my father's acting captain. Had the same authority, basically. But I know why I was made a captain. Because Persico wanted to separate me from my father because he broke my father. What do I mean by that? He took his captaincy away. And he took it away under the excuse that, Sonny, you keep getting violated. And I want to protect you. So I'm going to take your captaincy away. It was fraudulent because I was acting for my father. He didn't put himself in that position, even though he kept getting violated for silly reasons, always for an association. That's how it was. I was upset when that happened. I said, Dad, this is very disrespectful. You were the underboss at one time. You got a 50-year sentence, never opened your mouth. You did a lot for this family. How could they do that to you? My dad said, bide your time, son. Don't worry about it. Things work out in the end. This life is like a wheel. Who's on top one day could be on the bottom the other day. We'll have our time. That's what my father used to tell me. We'll have our time. Okay. All right, Dad, you say so. I listened to my dad. He was wise.
Oh, I gotta wait for my flex to stop growing, and I'm still not even sure that's gonna be enough.
I got my own crew that I developed during that time. People said to me, Michael, did you have a conscience during that time? Well, of course I did. Like I said, I knew I was doing wrong. There were some things that made me very uncomfortable, but I did them anyway. I was a knowing and willing sinner because I knew they were wrong. I tried to justify them in my mind and say, well, I took the oath and it's okay, and for that. We just try to make ourselves feel better. Sin is sin. Doing wrong is doing wrong. Evil is evil. There's no way to figure it. I've learned that now. I've come to my senses over the years. I understand it. So now here's what happens. Making a lot of money. In that life, you got to watch not only the government. Remember, I was a major target of law enforcement. My father's name came onto me immediately. I have 7 indictments. 7. More than most guys on the street. 7 indictments. From the time they were a 19-year-old kid. Boom, 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 boom. Constant investigations. Constant people on me. 7 indictments. 5 trials. They never able to convict me in a trial. It was either not guilty or dismissed. They never left me alone in that regard. Major target of law enforcement. Just like my dad. My dad would get upset with me. You have more indictments than I do at half my age. How'd you do that? Dad, what do you want from me? My name is Franzese. What could I say? You know, listen, when you're doing something good in that life, at least in law, well, maybe I should say bad, but when you're succeeding in that life, law enforcement's coming at you. If you're not succeeding, they don't bother with you. So, I'm making my mark, right? And along the way, things happen. Things happen. Well, one night, my dad's out on parole. Calls me up. Son, I got to see you. I said, okay, Dad. I go to his house in Long Island. We're in the driveway at his house. He says, hey, son, Junior wants to see us tonight, Persico. I said, okay, Dad, what time do you want me to pick you up? He said, no, they want to do this differently. I said, what do you mean? He said, they want me to come in first. They want you to come in second. I said, why? Why are they separating us? I said, Dad, there's been some talk on the street. You know, I'm in this gas business. Some guys were going to talk to my Russian friends, wanting to know how much money we're making. I said, why is that happening? Don't worry about it. You know, we got an order. We got to go. I said, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. Why are they separating us? I said, that's not right. Shouldn't separate father and son. No way. Son, we got an order. We got to go. I said, Dad, I don't like this. I don't like it. I said, why do you have to go in first? I said, I don't like it. People, you got to be alert in that life. You could be making enemies when you don't know it. There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy in that life. And I'm not putting myself up there as somebody special. I'm just telling you like it is. I was mad. I didn't want to go. We were, you know, look, I always considered my dad my superior. He was a smart guy. He spent a lot of time in his life. He knew it well, and he taught me well. I will say that. But tonight I was disagreeing with him. I said, I don't want to do that. We went at it, back and forth, till finally, you know what, I threw up my hands. I said, you know what, Dad, I've been listening to you my whole life. I don't want to do this way, but I'm going to listen to you again. Okay. Boom. I leave. He had somebody driving him in, I assume. I get a call from Jimmy Angelina, another captain in the family. He says, hey, meet me on such and such a place, and we got this meeting tonight. It's okay. I drive into Brooklyn. I meet Jimmy. And I get in a passenger seat.
Trust is everything has a price.
Yeah, some guy sitting in the back. I recognize him slightly. Didn't know him. Wasn't a maid guy. And this was a covert meeting, obviously. Junior on parole forever. So we had to make sure that we weren't followed going to the meeting place. And the meeting place was a house in Brooklyn, in somebody's basement, one of our guys. So we're driving around, and I'm waiting for Jimmy to give me some insight. What's happening at this meeting tonight? He doesn't really talk to me. He talks to me about the Yankees. I'm a diehard Yankee. I don't want to hear about the Yankees at night. And I'm wondering, what's this guy sitting in the back seat? Now, people, let me tell you something. One of the horrors of that life, and it is a horror of that life. If you make a mistake, your best friend walks you into that room. You don't walk out again. You don't know. Sometimes you don't know. Now, obviously, during my time in that life, I know about those situations. And I'm getting a little bit suspicious here. This guy's not talking to me, not telling me, hey, here's what's going on. Not saying a word. I got a guy sitting in the back seat. What's he doing there? Okay. After about 15, 20 minutes driving around, we get to this house in Brooklyn. We park. We get out of the car. It was nighttime by now. We get out of the car. And it was a 30, 40-yard walk from the car down to the basement apartment we had to go. So slammed the door, shut the door. I hear Jimmy shutting the door. No, the guy in the back. His door's shutting. And I'm saying, what is this guy doing? Not one of us, not a maid guy. Why is he coming into this meeting? This is a high-end meeting. Why is he coming? Why is he following me? Now I'm getting nervous. I know the setup. I'm walking down there. You know, people have said to me, Michael, were you scared? Hell, I was, yeah. I was scared. I'm saying, this is not right. This setup is no good. You know, when I talk about these people, I'm not kidding. And I'm not trying to be dramatic or exaggerating, but, you know, when you think you're going to meet your maker and that comes into your head, you get nervous. You get scared. And believe me, I started praying. I wasn't a prayerful guy. I grew up a Catholic. I wasn't into my religion. When I talk about this, I can smell the fragrance of the flowers. It was an August night. I can almost see those little fireflies, you know, darting around where we had them in New York, Brooklyn. I'm saying, man, this is bad. Something is wrong. I don't like this setup. And I'm telling you, my knees were getting a little weak. My heart started to thump pretty loud. And people said to me, Mike, why didn't you just cut and run? Why don't you just get out of there? You know, it wasn't heroic. I wasn't saying, hey, I'm a tough guy. No. It was robotic. After being in that life and getting it, I said, hey, you know what? I guess this is it. Or if this is it, it was robotic. I mean it. I can't describe it any other way. And I'm walking down those steps, and they're following me. They're behind me. I'm walking down the steps. And I get to the door, and people, I'm going to tell you, I don't know how I didn't faint when that door opened, because it would have been very easy. Somebody to my left, I walk in the door, boom, it's over. I don't know how I didn't faint, quite honestly. I was nervous. I walk in, I'm here. And all the while, honestly, I'm trying not to show that I'm scared, but they saw it. They wanted it. It was intentional, this whole setup, the way it was. And I get in, and we sit down, two guys at the table, aside from Junior, and they start grilling me about money in the gas business. In fact, people, you know that. I'm not going to get into it. I was making a lot of money, and I was turning in a lot of money. But there was an article that came out, I believe the Long Island Press, that said I was making $2 billion, or I defrauded the government out of $2 billion, something like that. I don't know. It wasn't $2 billion. It was a lot of money, but it wasn't $2 billion. I don't believe so. And they started drilling me. And you know, I started getting angry. I say, wait a second. I'm doing all of this. I'm taking all the risk. I didn't involve anybody else. Nobody even knows who you are. I got my crew. I'm taking the risk. I'm handing you over all this money. And now I'm being questioned about it? I never even had to borrow anything. I don't need anything. You protected me, yeah. When I sat down, we won. But I should be because I'm handing in all this money. And now you're looking at me like I did something wrong? I'm starting to get angry. You don't get angry with the boss. Never get angry with the boss, right? Catch myself. We talk. Goes on maybe 45 minutes to an hour, grilling me about different things. And finally, it's over. All right, we're satisfied. Everything is good, no problem. Let's have a drink. Glass of wine, you know, a little bit. Honestly, I wanted out of there. I just wanted to get out of there. Didn't want to stay in there anymore. I was that aggravated. I was angry. I look at Jimmy and said, Jimmy, I got a long ride back to Long Island. Take me to my car. I say goodbye to everybody who was there, Junior, whoever was there. I think Alley Boy was there. And I get in the car with Jimmy. The other guy wasn't there. And I'm really upset with him because I knew Jimmy all my life. And he didn't tell me a thing. He didn't prepare me for anything. So we get in the car and I was ready to just let him have it, right? And as we get in, he turns to me and he says, before you say anything, I know what you're going to say. Before you say anything, listen to me. And I said, what? He said, I want to tell you something. You held yourself up in there pretty good tonight. Mike, this was a problem. And I looked at him and I said, you knew this? You knew you could have been walking me into my death? And you don't say a word to me? I knew you all my life. This is what kind of friend you are? Just like that. And he turned to me. He was a very smart guy. And he said to me, well, let me ask you something. I said, what? He said, if this was the other way around, would you have told me? I said, no. He said, Mike, this is the life we lead. He said, you grew up in it. You know it as well or better than anybody else. The life we lead. Okay. He was right. Had the right answer. And I'm sitting there, I couldn't even talk anymore. I was just emotion, angry, whatever I was. I go to get out of the car, when we get near my car. I'll never forget, people. He grabs my arm. You know, he was in the driver's seat. Grabs my arm. He says, I'm going to tell you something, man. I am your friend. He said, I'm going to tell you this. You're not going to like it, but take this to the bank. I said, what, Jimmy? He said, your father was in there earlier tonight, before you. He didn't help you one bit. He hurt you in there. I looked at him. I was so stunned I couldn't even respond. You know, for a minute, I didn't even think about my dad. I didn't even think about it because I was so angry with what went on there. I didn't even ask them, where's my dad? I didn't want them to think that I was worried or nervous, but they saw it. They wanted me to be nervous. They wanted to show me who the boss was. It's the life. I get out of the car and I start walking to my car. And I said, what in the heck could my father have done? And then I'm thinking, knowing my father so well, this is my dad to the T. Hey, I'm on parole. My son does everything. I don't do anything. He handles it all. If something is missing, if something's not going down right, you got to ask him. Don't ask me. He just backed right off. He didn't take any weight. He didn't say, my son would never do anything wrong. My son's a good soldier. He would never. He could have stood up for me because he had a lot of juice, but he didn't. And I know, I was told afterwards exactly what went down. And I believed it. I did. That had an impact on me. You know, we have defining moments in our life. My first big defining moment was the night Dad proposed me. My second big defining moment, maybe not. There were a lot of ones in between. I don't want to get into it. Oh, the night I got made. But this was a defining moment. Why? Because I said, if this life can separate father and son, what do I really have here? What is this really all about? It really struck me, and I just filed it away. You know, in that life, people, you don't talk out of school. You don't say a lot. Keep things inside of you. I didn't say a word to my dad. And honestly, I didn't love him any less. I knew my fault. I didn't love him any less. We all have faults. I have faults. My dad, I understood. Because you got to understand something about Sonny Francis. His legacy in that life meant more to him than anything else. He wanted to be known as the guy that died with his boots on. Never talk to the feds, never give anybody up. That's just who he was. His family destroyed in the interim, no doubt about it, but he wanted to be known as the most upstanding guy that there was. Okay, so even here, I didn't do anything wrong. What are you asking me for? My son handles everything. I don't know what he's doing. Don't tell me everything. That's the way he took it. That's the way he approached it. Damaging? Yeah. Yeah, it did hurt me. If he would have stood up for me a little bit stronger, they may not have grilled me the way they did. But he didn't. Okay, for life. You know, my father was my father. He was also my brother as a soldier and a capo in that life. I get it. I get it. It's almost like two different, not people, but two different personalities, emotions, whatever you want to call it. I filed it away. Never said a word to my dad. Never. Until something happened. People ask, why did you leave the life? You know, look, there's guys on YouTube come out with all these different things. But people, look, when I took my plea, I took a plea for a different reason. Because I fell in love with my wife, who's now my wife for 40 years. She was a young girl. She was 20 years old. Young. And I knew this life was so destructive to families. How do I know? Because I know. My family was destroyed. My sister, 27 years old, dies of an overdose of drugs. My baby sister, 40 years old, she dies, never mentally stable. Couldn't handle all the turbulence in our life. My mother, 2012, she passed away. Ugly relationship with my dad because she blamed him for everything that went wrong. All the stuff that went wrong, and rightfully so. It all went wrong because my father was a member of Cosa Nostra, just like every other family. They suffer as a result of the members of that life. My brother, 25 years of drug addict.
Don't ask unnecessary questions.
What we had to do just to keep him alive. All the headaches that he caused us. The whole family destroyed. Broke up, destroyed. My father, 40 years in prison. Disaster.
These came from deep
And every other
places.
made member. Their family's the same thing, different circumstances,
Everything
of course.
has a price.
Now I fall in love with this girl. I said, am I going to do this to her? I'm a major target. I'm going to go down at some point. Giuliani said he's going to give me 100
Everything
years
has a
if he
price.
convicted me. I beat that case. But that's what he told me in the courtroom. Look at the commission, guys. 100-year sentences. They would have given me at least 50, 60, 70. Who knows? I was one of the youngest guys there. And after all the times I beat them, they wanted to get even with me. They wanted to put me away for a long time. They told me that. So that's my fate. I'm not going to beat them forever. I knew that. I wasn't Superman. I knew that. I wasn't that narcissistic or that proud of myself that, hey, I can just keep beating them. Oh, the government, the United States government, the most powerful government in the world. They'll get you when they got to get you. Trust me. They have all the money, all the time, all the resources. They can do it. Our family was a warring family. A lot of guys died. But what's going to happen to me? I'm either die or I'm going to go to jail for the rest of my life. I'm going to marry a young girl and put her through this? Why? Got to make a break. I made a break because of that woman. That was it. I fell very much in love with her. It's my soulmate. 40 years. How we're together 40 years. It's another story. After all we went through. Very, very tough. Very tough. You people know I took a plea. I did 8 years in prison. I had a 10-year sentence. I had $15 million in restitution and forfeiture clauses and all this kind of stuff. I'm in prison. I walk away. Big story comes out. Life magazine, quitting the mafia. Now I got everybody mad at me. Persico wants to kill me. My father, they came into prison and said, your father went along with the contract. Boom. You're in a lot of trouble. Cooperate with us. We'll put you in a program. We'll preserve your life and that of your families. People, I didn't want to do that. No. I wasn't happy with Persico. I knew what he did. I remember that time he put me on the spot. I didn't hate him. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to put him in prison. It's not who I am. I didn't want to do those kind of things. So I said no. Government gave me a very hard time. I'm not going to get into that. You know the story. But here's what happened. I do 5 years in prison. I get out. I'm on parole for 13 months. Very tough 13 months. It was public that I walked away from that life. The government was upset because I wouldn't cooperate to the extent that they wanted me to. I told them a lot of stuff that I did, but I wasn't looking to put people in jail. I knew how to maneuver. I knew how to make them a little bit happy, tell them something, but not give them everything, to the point where they finally got frustrated with me. They said, this guy's full of it. And this is proven. John Gleason, who was the prosecutor, he said in his book, Michael put us on a wild goose chase. He didn't get us on. I did. And finally they had enough. I'm out on parole, they violate my parole, pick me up in a bag as I'm walking out. Franzese, you're done. They confiscated all my money. They took my car away, took every penny out of my wife's purse, went to my home with a search warrant. They cleaned us out. They drive me down to the federal lockup in LA, ready to transport me back to Brooklyn in the morning. I said, Franzese, we're done with you. We know you played a game with us. We violated your parole. We're indicting you on another racketeering case. No doubt. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. You're done. And they threw me in the hole. And I'm inside. And people, I want to tell you, I think I may have said this before. I say this in church. I can tell you that. Part of my testimony. Of course. I've been doing it for 30 years. And I said, you know, I'm done. Took all my money. They're going to indict me on another racketeering case. People, you don't beat these cases with public defenders. I spent millions defending myself. I said, they can't put me out on the yard. I got everybody looking to hurt me. I said, my wife, 27 years old, she waited for me 5 years, tough years, 13 months on.
Ed and Lorraine Warren were born 1 year and just a few blocks apart in Bridgeport, Connecticut, a blue-collar factory town built on smokestacks, Catholic superstition, and the lingering ghost of P.T. Barnum, the local legend whose enduring legacy as a world-class showman and hoaxer hinged on a simple idea: never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Well, hyperbole is the worst, right?
Edward Warren Miney came into the world first on September 7th, 1926, the son of a hard-nosed Connecticut state trooper who believed in nothing he couldn't touch or cuff with his own two hands. So when a 5-year-old Ed claimed that a glowing dot in his bedroom morphed into the scowling ghost of their dead landlady, his father didn't comfort him. He told them to forget he ever saw it and to never tell.
Very frightening things occurred to me. But they were just as necessary as a good wife was to me. They were very necessary because I would have to understand later on when I started investigating haunted houses how frightened these people really were. I understood that because I had lived it.
Less than 5 months later, Lorraine Rita Moran was born in Bridgeport, just 3 blocks from her future husband. Her date of birth was January 31st, 1927. And like the boy across town, Lorraine was also touched by the other side. But while Ed's ghost came from the corners of a dark bedroom, Lorraine's came from inside her.
From the time that I was about 7 years old, I remember seeing lights around people. I realized that I was
Communicating with who or what exactly, she couldn't say for sure. But the strange fruits of that correspondence were always the same. Vivid colors no one else could see. Halos around people and objects, flickers of what would be in the future instead of what was in the future. For years, Ed and Lorraine lived parallel lives, orbiting one another until they finally crossed paths as teenagers. According to the story they want you to believe, they met and fell in love almost immediately. That instant connection helped forge a decades-long bond that would help spin those dark gifts into a shared mission, and the foundation for a billion-dollar supernatural empire that was on the Conjure cinematic universe. Fitting for two people from a town whose motto is Industria Crescimus, a Latin phrase that means by industry we thrive. By all accounts, the couple did thrive, despite the common misconception that they didn't make any money from their cases. What the Warrens thrived on depends who you ask. Some say they built a career telling stories of genuine thousands of demonic forces from beyond our world. Others see
Hybrids Absolute, you gonna celebrate Cinco de Mayo.
Only the second group
I don't know, probably.
Hybrids Absolute, damn it, autocorrect.
I'll give you one guess which camp I'm in. Like P.T. Barnum before them, yes, the same one who made the circus, the Warrens spent their entire careers fending off accusations of fraud. And much like a circus, their history is a chaotic one, so buckle with it.
Now this is not Hollywood hype. This is what happens in many houses that Lorraine and I go into, and this is what we see.
Well, I've investigated haunted houses for some 20 years. I've not met a house that I thought was haunted. I think the Warrens have never met a house that they didn't think was haunted.
Everything that they say you cannot fact check because it doesn't exist. In my opinion, Ed and Lorraine were frauds.
I think at the end of the day, Ed and Lorraine were really good salespeople.
And we now know from some of the ghostwriters...
Hybrids Absolute, you get the hull that makes it so your health kits for your ship don't get interrupted when hit.
Just make up stuff.
No, I got a. I forgot what I forgot what it's called. I do got an upgraded hull though.
Welcome to Horror History. Today, we're investigating the
Steadfast, that's what it is. Steadfast hull.
You're familiar with the Hollywood-approved version of Ed and Lorraine Warren. In the movies, they're America's premier demon-fighting couple, the unyielding moral center of a world overrun by evil, armed with rosary beads, enough holy water to supply a fire station, and that aw-shucks sort of charm. The kind that makes your grandparents seem endearing when they seemingly have no idea that the folks they just interacted with online is actually the most vile, crude joke.
Hybrid's absolute is that the heal one when a ship is close that you destroy. I forget.
That it became the new template.
I can't look right now. I don't remember which one it is.
Religious horror, and a whole video about how oversaturated it became, featuring me losing my mind. But while The Imitators became frustratingly formulaic, I've always liked the Conjuring films for getting the human element right amidst all of the supernatural distress.
With that darkness of these films, we always look for those scenes with Ed and Lorraine to show their joy, their love, their humor, their pathos, their empathy.
It's been decades of like love and loss and levitating furniture. It's hopelessly romantic and beautifully terrifying.
That was Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, the cinematic versions of Ed and Lorraine, who provide the emotional backbone. They're made out to be the superheroes who oppose the demonic villains, all while being painted as impossibly wholesome role models. Their role in the story is often just as much about being a pillar of support for the families being haunted as it is fighting demons. Whether that's cooking pancakes, singing Elvis tunes, cooking pancakes again, basically a lot of pancakes.
The following is based on a true story.
But the truth we've been sold is only one version of the story. In real life, Ed and Lorraine's most famous cases are steeped in controversy thicker than Ed's pancakes. And not even $1 billion worth of ticket stubs can keep it there. Guys, if I die in the next 48 hours, have Peter Safran's hands DNA tested. From the Perrin family haunting, to the Amityville horror, and especially the Enfield poltergeist case, the real-life accounts of what happened are a chaotic tangle of conflicting stories, missing evidence, shifting testimonies, and vocal detractors who insist that the Warrens exaggerated or outright invented key details. And Hollywood has been complicit in selling the lie. To understand how two haunted kids from Bridgeport became the most famous demon hunters in American history, we have to go all the way back to, ironically enough, a darkened movie theater, where a chance encounter would set the stage for one of the most influential and controversial careers that the paranormal world has ever seen. The Warrens' so-called paranormal investigations may have actually been a scheme to put a few extra bucks in their pockets, but I wonder if history would have been different if there was an easier way to generate some income, like playing mobile games and completing offers on your phone. Well, now back to
Hybrid's absolute. Oh, you got the reactive armor one.
Sponsored by Free Cash.
Yeah.
It's a platform where you can actually earn real money just by playing games and completing offers on your phone. You sign up, pick an offer, and then earn rewards.
I got Standfast, that's what it's called. God damn it.
Showed exactly how much you can earn for each step.
Holy shit. Oh, god damn.
I tried one of the game offers and just played normally for a bit, and once you hit the rewards milestone, you can cash out through things like PayPal. They also have a 4.8 star rating on Trustpilot with over 250,000 reviews, so you can trust that it's not like a scam. Unlike some people, if you want to try it yourself, use the link at the top of the description or scan the QR code, and you'll get a $10 bonus when you start your first offer. Your interface might look slightly different depending on your country, but the process works the same. You can also refer friends and earn extra rewards when they complete offers too. Just click that link in the description or scan the QR code to start earning your free cash.
I remember meeting my husband. I had gone to the movies. Then, when we left, there was a little ice cream parlor there. And he says, "I'll buy all you girls a Coke." And I ordered an ice cream soda. He told me from day one, he knew I was a gold digger.
As it turned out, both Ed and Lorraine had struggled by meeting each other. They just didn't know it yet. According to researcher and Warren biographer Cheryl Wicks, Ed was working as an usher at the Colonial Theater in Bridgeport in 1942 when in walked 15-year-old Lorraine Moran and a handful of her girlfriends. This was wartime America, the height of World War II, and in the middle of the show, an air raid drill forced every paying audience member out onto the street. I wish that had happened to me when I saw Shelby Oaks. It would have been the most exciting part of the movie. Outside, as the sirens blared, Ed and Lorraine caught eyes, and I guess the sirens ringing in their ears felt like an omen. I imagine Ed writing in his journal, "When you're 17, you'll meet a girl during an air raid. It's very important that you offer her a coat. She's gonna make you rich." Ed shared the haunting with his dead landlady. Lorraine told him about the visions that she'd spent her whole life trying to deny. How she horrified the nuns at her Catholic school when she told them she could see things that no one else could.
I was at a private Catholic girls' school, and I told one of the nuns that her lights were brighter than Mother Superior. And I paid a price for that.
United by the mutual feeling that they'd each been gifted the ability to see beyond the veil, the teens were engaged to be married within a year. Not atypical for a couple back then. The wedding would happen. Ed had enlisted in the Navy, probably because he couldn't support his wife to be's ice cream soda habit on a movie theater employee salary. No disrespect to movie theater employees, though. I don't know what I would do without you guys. I cannot make it through a long movie without food. And like me, in a long movie without food, Ed almost didn't make it through his time in the Navy. He nearly died when his ship sank.
Hybrids absolute. If I ascend the hull, it adds more potent heals for my ship.
Waters of the North Atlantic, Ed was certain that he'd never make it back home to marry Lorraine. Some might see his lifeboat rescue as fate or divine intervention and proof that Ed and Lorraine were meant to help people. And some might see it as a standard safety. As soon as his clothes were dry, Ed raced home on a survivor's leave, married Lorraine, and conceived their daughter, Judy. When he finally returned home, the Warrens' greatest fear wasn't the Axis powers or the demonic powers of Malthus, Valak, or Satan. It was the grocery. Between a newborn baby, a new marriage, and a rapidly growing bank account, the young couple needed a way to plug the money in, and fast.
I had this crazy dream. Saw this thing, woke up, right out of my head. Maybe this might help.
Dude, another freighter?
Ed needed money, which is why his next move was one of his most puzzling. He enrolled in art school under the GI Bill, a government program that gives money to military veterans to help with things like housing and education. He was determined to paint his way out of poverty. Look, I went to art school, and I made it work somehow. But come on, I think there must have been better ways we could have made money with a
Holy shit.
And Ed would soon see why. The paintbrush alone was not paying the bills, so he came up with a scheme. If people wouldn't buy his art, then he'd trick people into taking it.
Ed, he was an artist. He went to art school for a couple years after the Navy, and he used to read about haunted houses. And he would drive to these places with Lorraine, and he would take a sketch pad and pencil with him, and he'd pull up in front of the house, he'd sketch the house, take about 30 minutes.
Only he wasn't selling these hastily thrown together pieces to the homeowners. They were merely a ticket to get inside.
Then he'd hand the sketch to Lorraine. They opened the door and say, "My husband sketched this nice sketch of your home. He wants you to have it." And he said, maybe they'll let us in, and we can talk about the haunting that they have. And that's how they started.
For years, the Warrens crisscrossed New England in a beat-up car, chasing whispers of drafty Victorian mansions or sagging farmhouses to do their bait-and-brush routine. Ed would often make a more dramatic version of the supposedly haunted home if the story behind it was especially juicy, adding eerie flourishes like cobwebs, gnarled branches, or an oppressive fog set beneath a swollen moon. And witches. Apparently he loved adding witches to his paintings. I can just see him going up and knocking on some rich house with a painting behind his back, and when they answer the door, he's just like, "What's wrong? No witches?" For what it's worth, the majority of these paintings are really good though. I would put this up in my condo, and I'm guessing these are the ones that he didn't manage to give away for free, so it's very possible that his other work is even better. If only he'd stuck with it a bit longer, you might be watching a video about a painter rather than a grifter. Being the ones who got first access to investigate every rumored haunting in the area did wonders for the couple's growing notoriety. But cobbling together enough money to keep the lights on proved especially challenging during this time. Ed was forced to work odd jobs to survive, like driving a city bus in Monroe, Connecticut. Dude was literally operating the struggle bus. You can't make this up. Several unconfirmed reports also suggest that Ed worked as a police officer during this time, but I couldn't find any credible sources to back up that claim. It seems to be an example of my favorite thing, where false information gets posted online and people just blindly repost it until it's practically considered fact. The confusion probably started because his father worked in law enforcement, but I imagine if Ed was a cop, he wouldn't have needed to lie to get access to a lot of these haunted houses. But simply being there and investigating didn't give him the credibility he desired. The next step was to hit the books. He basically turned into Needy during that one scene in Jennifer's Body and soaked up every book on the occult that he could get his hands on, educating himself on demonology, exorcism, theology, and folklore. The thing is, when it comes to paranormal studies, there's no certificate, no academic track, or church-sanctioned coursework. You don't need to get your medical license in demonology. So Ed Warren did exactly what P.T. Barnum did a century earlier. He just told people that he was the person he wanted them to believe he was, a demonologist. This was the point where the lies started to spin out of control.
I did not wake up one day and say, I want to be a demonologist. I was born a demonologist. Yes, there are degrees that you can get in theology, psychology, but to be a true demonologist, you have to be born to it.
Grifters have a way of flocking to these quote-unquote industries that they require official certification. I'm very familiar with this because many of them have tried to sponsor this channel, and I've shut them down and sent them on their way. For example, in the US, supplements are regulated by the FDA, but they're regulated as food, not medication. So as long as they don't kill you, it's technically not illegal for them to make a website where they feature testimonials from people claiming that the supplement helped them in some way that has never been scientifically proven. The titles that they come up with for the people giving these testimonials can be very funny, because you start to see a pattern. It's always nutritional coach, vegan athlete, or a doctorate graduate, but not like a doctor of medicine. It's never an actual medical doctor, because the supplements are almost always a scam that won't kill you, but will take your money without doing anything to help you. Side note, sometimes when I try to explain this to people, they get mad because they've already fallen for the scam, and I think they psychologically just want to justify the money they've already spent, so they try to argue that it actually does work. And demonology works exactly the same way. It's something that anyone can declare themselves an expert in, and it's not regulated by any governing body. So Ed and Lorraine can make stuff up all day about its effectiveness. And people who believe in it get really mad when you point this out. So why am I even bringing up supplements and demonology if it's just gonna make people mad? It's because I'm making a video debunking the Warrens. I think I already pissed off everyone who's gonna get pissed off 30 seconds into the video. And by the way, before I move on from this, as a horror creator, I definitely have friends who believe in the supernatural, and we never get mad at each other. It's almost like you can just coexist with people who have different beliefs than you do if you just respect each other. Anyway, Ed claimed that his understanding of supplements wasn't learned, but an innate gift. He went on to say that whatever knowledge he didn't possess was later delivered to him directly by way of a literal angel.
Well, I didn't have that knowledge that would come to me through an angel.
If I had an angel that hand delivered knowledge to me, it would make researching this video a hell of a lot easier. But while Ed embraced the dark, Lorraine was repelled by it. It almost sounds like she started off as more of a skeptic. In Gerald Brittle's book, The Demonologist, an early career retrospective of the Warrens, Lorraine says, in the beginning I was a bit more aware.
Jesus Christ! Where are all these ships coming from?
Active imagination, or we're just making things up to get attention. In fact, some things people told us sounded completely outlandish. She turned the corner when familiar patterns emerged time and time again. Different towns, different families, same story. We would be in vastly different places, one week in Iowa and the next in Texas, but there was often a similarity, sometimes even an exactness to the stories that people would tell. And there Ed and I would be, paint all over our hands and arms, offering consolation to folks who were often twice our age, telling them what we knew about the workings of the spirit. By 1952, Ed and Lorraine had formalized their operation, founding the New England Society for Psychic Research, or NESPR for short. A centralized investigative body meant to enhance their credibility in the eyes of the public. Under the NESPR banner, a rotating cast of medical personnel, researchers, law enforcement, students, and members of the clergy were invited to assist the Warrens in the research and documentation of the paranormal, compiling a steady stream of photos, audio recordings, and case files said to confirm the existence of spirits. At least that's what they wanted to do. Churches throughout New England began recruiting the Warrens to evaluate reports of alleged demonic activity, which only helped legitimize them further in certain circles who believed in the paranormal. Whenever I get invited to go on a podcast, they almost always lead by mentioning other celebrities. And I think that's kind of
Jesus Christ!
Grouping themselves with reputable institutions. By the mid-1950s, the script was officially flipped. The days of roaming the countryside, knocking on doors, and offering sketches in exchange for ghost stories were over. Now, the stories came to them, and sometimes people were desperate to get help from them, especially after most wrote off their claims upon the residences as delusion. This shift favored Ed and Lorraine in more ways than one. They didn't have to grind to get a new opportunity to investigate something to add to their resume, and the people that they were investigating already believed that their case was something else. In fact, they were desperate to believe, because believing that ghosts and demons were the root of their issues meant believing that the Warrens could fix whatever issues they had going on in their lives. So Ed and Lorraine did not have to pull out any tricks or illusions to get the victims to corroborate their story. By the way, we can assume that the early painting investigations included plenty of trickery and illusions, especially based on some of the documented tampering that the Warrens would pull in their later, high-profile cases. We'll get there soon. The two looked into everything, from claims of human vampirism to vengeful witches, because Ed loves his witches, to naive teens whose party tricks with a Ouija board open them up to a lot more trouble than just upset parents. All of these claims, of course, are alleged supernatural happenings. With referrals flowing in and NESPR giving their work a formal spine, the Warrens took the next logical step. They went public.
So, what are you guys? I mean, what do people call you?
Well, we've been called demonologists. It's one name for us. Ghost hunters, paranormal researchers.
But we prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Again, notice how the movie subtly reframes it, making it look like Ed didn't invent the term demonologist, instead making it look like a name that was bestowed upon him. By the late 1950s and early 60s, Ed and Lorraine were mainstays on the lecture circuit, filling church basements, community halls, and crucially, college campuses with a key demographic that was vital to the health of their brand: young people. Not just young, but newly untethered from their parents' authority, the perfect age to adopt some unfamiliar ideology. It's the same reason that campuses seem to have so many protests. It's the crucial point in someone's life where they're most willing to challenge the beliefs that they've been shackled to for the first 18 years of their lives. house. The Warrens were happy to oblige, even if it meant destroying a few families along the way. More than just a tool for publicity, the lectures Ed and Lorraine would give were the primary source of their income. Even if some college students objected to the idea of their schools forking their tuition money over to fraud and capitalizing on meritless superstition. It is true that the Warrens never charged money for their help. And while this is probably the single biggest counter-argument against the thesis that there were grifters, I don't think their unwillingness to charge clients was just out of the goodness of their hearts. It could be because it just wouldn't have been very lucrative. These people were already suffering, down on their luck, and clearly stressed out by life, which is usually a catalyst for why they start to believe that they're haunted in the first place. We even see this in the movies. All the families they help appear to be poor families who have tried everything and turn to the Warrens as last resort. You don't see any rich families approach the Warrens, because the rich families don't tend to believe that they're being haunted. They have the resources to fix whatever is going on with them. But not taking a paycheck doesn't mean the Warrens are morally in the clear. Because while Ed didn't charge a direct rate for their services, their assistance wasn't exactly free, not in the strict sense of it. In The Demonologist, Ed and Lorraine make an important distinction, saying, we have no reason to put our thumb on the skin. We're not Bible thumpers, we don't charge money for our services, but we must be reimbursed for basic expenses such as airfare, hotel rooms, etc. When that's understood, we set up an appointment as soon as possible. In other words, that poor single mother of four from The Conjuring 2 whose husband ran off with a woman from around the corner, in real life, Ed wasn't getting off the couch until his airfare, hotel, and fish and chips were paid for. Sure, you could argue that if you're dumb enough to fall for it, you deserve to get duped by the Warrens, but remember, these were people who were already going through it in life, had tried everything, and genuinely believed that if they just spent their last dollars on Ed and Lorraine's hotel room, maybe they could be the ones that fix everything. To make matters worse, a lot of the time when a poor family would say that they're being haunted, it was actually a medical issue, a mental health thing, or in some cases, a bad seed. And I'm not
oh shit! God damn it!
Seem to have no problems letting them believe that the very real family issue was a haunting in order to make people give up the ghost. Imagine you've given up, and then you see these supposed miracle workers flash onto your TV screen.
Can we get out the number of the Society for New England Society? Yes, thank you.
203, well, it's local.
Okay.
268-8235 for families who have problems.
If you have a ghost in a house, who are you going to call?
It's kind of like the casino who takes a man's last dollar with the promise that this will be the one where he wins big. As the Warrens' case files piled up, so did the leftovers. They began to collect these allegedly cursed objects, which Ed and Lorraine blamed as the cause of their client's supernatural disturbances. They developed a collection of antique mirrors, amulets, jars of cemetery dirt, books, statuettes, shrunken heads, masks, dolls and toys, a sword, a satanic idol, an old wedding dress, glass eyeballs. They even managed to win themselves a haunted orchid. Hope the movers were all wearing their special demon-repelling gloves. Some of the items they have there in real life are kind of funny to me and have the same energy as people selling World Series authenticated field goals. Like this supposed splinter from the crucifix of Jesus Christ. The battery-operated candles are a fitting touch, aren't they? Or this allegedly floating brick from Borley Rectory, known by some as England's most haunted house. Are we really calling this a brick now? Because, guys, that's just a rock. Someone threw a rock and took a picture of it. Each item was tagged, cataloged, and stored inside the Warren home. When asked by Chad and Kerry Hayes, the screenwriters who penned the first Conjuring film, why they keep the objects, Lorraine gave a memorable response.
The bottle that the genie's in, I'd rather know where the genie is because it's attached to this.
Wow, it's so virtuous of them to keep all those dangerous objects in their home. I'm sure they didn't have some ulterior motive. Over time, the collection grew so large that it quietly overtook the Warrens' home in Monroe, Connecticut. The stockpile of evil artifacts was moved to the basement, and the Warrens rebranded the space, calling it the Monroe Occult Museum. In 1963, the collection became too big to manage, so the couple hired a live-in assistant named Judith Penny. Penny first met Ed when she was just 15 years old, back when he made his living behind the wheel of a Monroe City bus. Once inside the Warren home, she helped catalog the collection, which had ballooned to hundreds of items. She also assisted with lectures and offered general support for an operation that was rapidly outgrowing its capacity. Among the hundreds of objects that passed through the Warrens' hands, one stood above the rest. A simple doll with button eyes and a triangle nose. A doll named Ed.
This is the worst thing in here. Is that doll. I'm not going to stare at it though, because it has done bad harm to a lot of people.
In 1970, the Warrens' first true breakout case arrived in an unusually cutesy package, a Raggedy Ann doll. Two nursing students, Donna Jennings and Angie Tableton, and Angie's fiancé, Lou Carlo, claimed that they were being terrorized by the doll inside their Hartford, Connecticut apartment. The story that would become the Warrens' hallmark case was actually one of the flimsiest they have.
We learned from her that a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had died in this apartment. She was lonely and took a liking to my doll.
When we heard this, we felt really sorry for her. I mean, we're nurses, we help people. So, we gave her permission to move into the doll.
That decision set the stage for even worse territory, prompting Ed and Lorraine's involvement. Their diagnosis? There was no Annabelle Higgins. Only a demonic spirit that tricked Donnie and Angie into believing that it was the ghost of a
So the doll was never possessed.
No, it was used as a conduit. It was moved around to give the impression of possession. Demonic spirits don't possess things. They possess people. They wanted to get inside of them.
However, while the movies make the symptoms of the haunting much scarier, making it seem like the work of a demon, the actual experience basically consists of the doll moving from room to room while they were gone, the limbs being arranged in weird postures, and a series of notes all directed at Lou. The clincher was when the doll's hands were seen smeared in a red liquid that looked like blood. They never said that it was actual blood. It wasn't tested as far as I can tell. It just looked like blood. I don't know about you, but if I had a roommate and my doll was moving positions when I wasn't there, and there were notes left with my name on them, I would assume it was a prank. They consulted with a medium who told them the doll is possessed by a little girl named Annabelle Higgins, but when the Warrens arrived, they changed the narrative to something that benefits them. It's actually a demonic presence imitating a little girl, and they needed to take the doll with them for safety. I'm sure the fact that they have a paranormal museum is just a coincidence. The Warrens would have you believe that they underwent the whole investigation, following protocol, taking notes and pictures, and filing everything away from their studies. If you look on the Nespro website, they even show these manila folders for their major cases, as if they were the leads of some kind of hard-boiled detective story. Same goes for movies like Annabelle Comes Home, where we see Ed and Lorraine's daughter and babysitter snoop into boxes of these folders filled with notes and photos. But if you click on that folder on the website, it just takes you to the most basic description, and as far as I can tell, the raw case files don't actually exist. So it seems very much like Ed and Lorraine got called in because they lived nearby and had developed some notoriety around the paranormal, showed up, saw the creepy doll, decided they'd like to have a collection, and made up a story to make that happen. I couldn't find any police report or evidence of injuries or any evidence that really legitimizes the Annabelle case to be anything beyond an urban legend. As I mentioned, the demon-fighting couple sealed Annabelle behind glass, where it became the main attraction of the occult museum. I'm not going to go any deeper on her here, though, because I have a whole video on the insane history of the Annabelle doll that you can check out after this. While Annabelle went on to be our introduction to the Conjuring universe decades later, the first Conjuring film is mostly about a different case, involving a terrified family in Harrisville, Rhode Island, Roger and Carolyn Perrin, and their 5 daughters. The Perrins' nightmare began in 1971 when they moved into a sprawling, centuries-old farmhouse that had already lived several lifetimes before the family showed up. The occasion was met with overwhelming joy, at first.
The idea of living on 200 acres, a beautiful home like that's enough to... It was beautiful.
But just days after moving in, the entire Perrin family faced what they saw as unnatural disturbances, including apparitions, rancid smells, strange noises, and small piles of dirt scattered around the house. I love the idea that the ghost wanted to inconvenience them by making them clean. The mom, Carolyn, reported phantom bruises and debilitating muscle cramps that kept her bedridden for days. Roger, her husband, a traveling jewelry salesman, was away from home often. When he returned, he was inundated by stories from his family about hair-raising encounters with the ghost that they were forced to share the farmhouse with.
Wham, wham! The bedroom door started flying open out of nowhere, out of absolute nowhere. Wham, bam, up against the sides of the walls. Everybody would be just in total shock, and we'd be, okay, who did that?
In The Conjuring, the Warrens show up in November.
Jesus Christ, 3 more ships show up.
So probably
I can't destroy this big ship.
The Perrin's ordeal lasted.
Oh, holy fuck.
And in the words of Andrea Perrin, the oldest daughter,
5 more ships.
95% of the events featured in the movie
4 more ships.
They twisted, altered, or made up. That includes the Warrens themselves. Andrea says that their involvement didn't bring relief or resolution. It actively made the hauntings worse, triggering a surge of violent retribution that nearly cost her mother, Carolyn, her life.
Her chair was levitating, and she was in a split second thrown from the middle of our dining room into the middle of our parlor. Everyone in that house heard her skull hit the floor, and everyone in our house thought that we had just watched my mother die.
After the crash landing, Roger Perrin raced to his wife's side. When Ed Warren grabbed his arm to stop him, the demonologist felt his own skull hit the floor.
My father turned around and punched his lights out and took a man twice his size to the floor. Then he told the Warrens to pack up everything that they brought into our home that night and told them to get the hell out and never come back.
Andrea attempted to set the record straight in a 1,500-page trilogy of books called House of Darkness, House of Light, where she recounts the years-long affliction that she and her family were made to endure. Andrea does believe in the supernatural, so she mostly believed the claims that the Warrens told them, but her main issue was that they weren't making the situation better as they claimed they were. She cited phrases that Lorraine taught the girls to ward off spirits that just straight up didn't do anything, and seemed to think that the couple's involvement only pissed off the spirits more. She maintains that there are no experts in the field of paranormal investigation.
It's just a crock of shit. You know, I mean, anybody tells you that they're an expert in the field of paranormal investigation, run away from them. Run away from them.
Still, there are a few instances where even Andrea and her spirit believer family were able to smell the BS. Like when Lorraine blamed what was clearly a bat infestation on a demonic force, and she said no one in the house subscribed to her lurid interpretation. Ironically enough, Andrea herself has been a regular target of skeptics who say that her family's entire story is bogus, none more vocal than Norma Sutcliffe, the woman who moved into the Harrisburg house in 1987, a few years after the parents vacated the property. Norma claimed that she'd experienced zero demonic activity in more than 3 decades then, even running a successful daycare for 20 years out of this supposedly haunted portal to hell. Funny how the family who was convinced that the house was haunted sent themselves into a frenzy for 10 years, but a bunch of kids who knew nothing about the house's reputation and never had an issue. The only real haunting she faced was the incessant trespassers and phone calls from thrill seekers, eager to see the house up close. Fed up with the human activity the property attracted, Norma and her husband invited professional skeptics on guided tours, hoping to dispel the myths and quiet all the noise. Paranormal investigator Joe Nickel published a brief in the magazine Skeptical Inquirer after Norma invited him onto the property in 2016. After a thorough cellar-to-attic examination, Nickel said, "I analyzed the parents' claims of demonic activity and showed that they are consistent with the effects of strong winds, misperceptions, schoolgirl pranks, vivid dreams, simple suggestion, role-playing, and other factors, including one child's having had an imaginary playmate and the effects of memory after some 30 to 40 years. So basically, if you believe in the paranormal, then the Warrens are frauds who know nothing about the field. And if you don't believe in the paranormal, then the Warrens are frauds who are making people believe in the paranormal." Despite the pushback, they had believers, and sometimes even the support of legit publications, like the author of this article who frames their cases as authentic and acknowledges worlds that many people refuse to recognize. But their next investigation would be perhaps their most infamous, taking them inside the bleeding walls of a Dutch colonial in Amityville.
6 members of one family have been found shot to death in their night clothes in their expensive home in Amityville, Long Island. The victims have been identified as members of the DeFeo family. They were found by a 23-year-old son, Ronald DeFeo, who is believed to be the only surviving member of the family.
On the night of November 13th, 1974, police were called into a 3-story Dutch colonial at 112 Ocean Avenue amid reports of a bloody massacre. When police questioned the lone survivor, Ronald DeFeo Jr., the Charles Manson lookalike alluded to his father's rumored ties to organized crime. Ronald Sr., a Brooklyn native, was known to brag about his association with the Genovese crime family. He suggested maybe it was a mob hit, but Ronald collapsed under police scrutiny not long after during interrogation. He confessed to the killings, and during the 6-week trial, DeFeo claimed that voices from the house compelled him to kill, a wild declaration that became central to his insanity defense. The insanity plea didn't work. DeFeo was convicted of the murders and sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms. But his claims ignited a media frenzy, pulling journalists, thrill seekers, and paranormal investigators like Ed and Lorraine Warren. Part of that obsession centered on the house itself. The 5-bedroom Dutch colonial's most striking feature was a pair of attic windows that resembled watchful eyes. Everyone knows that houses that look like a face are 10 times more likely to be haunted. But before Ed and Lorraine made the trek from Connecticut, George and Kathy Lutz purchased the house at a steep discount in 1975, fully aware of its violent history.
We discussed the events that had happened in the house as a family and came to the decision that we would all be okay with the history of what had happened. But I don't think any of us considered the possibility that there would be something residual there.
They got it for $80K though, which is under $500,000 in 2026 money. Cheap mansion, someone got murdered there. Personally, it's all wins in my book. But just 28 days later, the new owners fled the house in terror.
We had substances seeping out of keyholes, toilet bowls that turned black, furniture that moved, windows that flew in, flies that appeared out of nowhere, and not one or two.
Sounds more like they were slobs than haunted. Or maybe it was all an act. Because after fleeing their dream home, the Lutzes met with William Weber, the former defense attorney for convicted Amityville killer Ronald DeFeo Jr. Over a few bottles of wine, they hatched up a scheme to scare up a few bucks.
I don't remember the number of bottles of wine that we had, but it certainly was more than 4. Toward the end, we were creating ideas.
So bottom line, do you believe the Lutz's story about what happened in those 28 days?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because I know that they were making a commercial venture of this.
Ladies and gentlemen,
We got him. Weber claimed the Lutzes met with him to discuss a book deal where they brainstormed ideas for the most sensational version of the Amityville story. But George and Kathy ultimately rejected the terms of that deal. Instead, they partnered with horror author Jay Anson to immortalize their so-called experience in paperback. The result of that collaboration was the best-selling book, The Amityville Horror, which went on to sell millions of copies and spawned a blockbuster movie of the same name starring James Brolin and Margot Kidder.
I'm coming apart! Oh, Mother of God, I'm coming apart!
28 days after the Lutz family moved into their dream house, they were running for their lives. What happened to them is an experience in terror you will never forget, and you will believe in the Amityville Horror.
But part of the foundation for the Amityville Horror's runaway success was laid by Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were contacted by a local TV news station looking to prove that the Amityville house was indeed haunted. Ed and Lorraine arrived in March of 1976, which was after the Lutzes turned tail and left, but more than a year before Jay Anson's book was published.
I don't know what the hell's on this ship, man, but...
The news crew assembled a team of psychics to join Ed and Lorraine, alongside reporters like Marvin Scott and a host of photographers. The plan was to hold a televised seance, giving people at home a front row seat to an investigation they hoped would be billed as definitive proof of the afterlife. Just imagine the TV ratings. But the definitive proof part was certainly debatable.
As a reporter, I have to tell you, I did not see anything, I did not feel anything, other than the reaction of Ed, Lorraine, the other psychics, and the other people around me.
As expected, in the absence of a big show of paranormal activity, the psychics in the room more than made up for it, particularly Lorraine Warren, who made the most elaborate claims despite a complete lack of evidence.
It was a horrible, foreboding type of feeling throughout the whole house. You knew that this house was infested by something other than human spirits. That's for sure. I hope this is as close to hell as I'll ever get.
Which is a very cool line for a movie one day. But it doesn't really mean anything, does it? I get a foreboding feeling every time I see a dude with a mullet-mustache combination. But does that mean that there's dark energy lurking behind him? Only sometimes. For all of the non-psychics in attendance, the only hell they experienced in Amityville was a sense of wasting time.
At 2 in the morning, I remember Marvin Scott turning to me and saying, "We don't have it." In other words, this was not The Exorcist for television.
Well, at least we have the movies.
We'd hoped to discover if the killings had been motivated purely by anger, or if, as Ronnie DeFeo testified in court, he had been under the influence of something demonic.
Even though the TV cameras didn't live up to the supernatural hype, there was one item that managed to outlive the empty spectacle of the made-for-TV seance. A photo of an open doorway snapped by an automatic infrared camera on a tripod that appeared to show a ghost boy with glowing white eyes eerily creeping around a corner. Many believe the boy in the photo was the ghost of 9-year-old John DeFeo. But skeptics argued the so-called boy was actually an adult man, Paul Bartz, no, not Paul Blart, an investigator working with the Warrens that night. And yeah, the pattern on Paul's shirt matched the pattern on the supposed ghost boy's clothing, and yeah, clearly Paul was wearing a plaid shirt that night, and the white eyes are probably just light reflecting off of his glasses. Since the image on the right was captured with an infrared camera, and the image on the left was taken with a normal camera, the colors appear lighter in the doorway image, as this guy, Kenny Biddle, was able to prove with some simple tests. Despite Lorraine's insistence that she felt something in the house, eventually, Ronnie DeFeo himself admitted on multiple occasions that his claims of demonic influence were outright lies. He also said that he knew the Lutzes before the murders. They would often head into New York City to score drugs together. That explains a lot, actually. According to DeFeo, the Lutzes smelled money when the murder story became a national news Yet, somehow after this, the Warrens still doubled down, reframing their lack of evidence as the audience's lack of faith.
They called the Amityville Horror a hoax. It was no hoax. This is the atheists. These are the people that don't want anybody to believe that such a thing as a haunted house exists or a ghost. Simply because if you believe that, you're going to believe there's spirits. God is a spirit. Angels are spirits.
All of this begs the question. Did the Warrens cling to these ideas because they truly believed them? Or were they holding on so tight because it helped their bottom line? Personally, I think it's the latter. But whatever you believe, the Amityville phenomenon made it clear that there was real money to be made in the demon fighting business. Seems obvious now, but at the time, they did not have 17 seasons of Bleach to prove this fact. Ed and Lorraine would spend the next 2 decades perfecting their hustle, and the pushback on the holes in their earlier cases was not enough to stop them from going worldwide. There was something that spoke to Ed and Lorraine Warren in Amityville. I don't know if it was ghosts, but they definitely sensed dollar signs. The two had a new business model: lose the lectures and go straight to mass media, TV, books, and eventually movies. All the Warrens had to do was pick the right story, then sit back and watch the money roll in. The Warrens did just that, and it started in Enfield, North London.
These teenage sisters believe they're haunted by a poltergeist.
I was going to ask the same question as I asked earlier. How many voices are there?
600.
600 voices.
That's a joke.
How many really are there, Margaret?
I think Psycho had 10 sensible voices, but the rest of the names are absolute rubbish.
The story of the Enfield poltergeist reads like a checklist of British horror tropes from the archives of Hammer Horror. There's furniture hurled across rooms, window curtains with an appetite for suffocation, a child channeling the voice of a dead man, disembodied whistles, unnaturally cold rooms, and literal bumps in the night. All of it centered around a single mother, Peggy Hodgson, and her 4 children. Her 2 daughters, Janet and Margaret, bore the brunt of it, with 11-year-old Janet allegedly speaking in the raspy voice of Bill Wilkins, an elderly man who lived and died in the Enfield house before the Hodgsons moved in.
Let me hear you say my name. That's not my name. Let's hear you say Dr. Belloc. Dr. Belloc.
Desperate for help, Peggy called neighbors, then police, with one officer signing an affidavit claiming that she saw a chair levitate, an account that helped propel the case from local concern to national curiosity. Soon, reporters crowded the small home with cameras and microphones, turning it into a public stage. A stage made all the brighter when a photographer from the Daily Mirror captured what are widely considered the most enduring images from the haunting, aka pretty much definitely a girl jumping off the bed. Like, come on.
Oh my God. The levitation of those girls. They would levitate.
I remember being pulled from my bed. I felt like a cold hand feeling and pushed up into the air. It was like a force, and I was screaming.
And they'd levitate, crisscross in the air.
Holy crap, it's like Lorraine is getting paid to make those noises with her mouth. Oh my God. The levitation of those girls. Alright, hey up, buddy. In 1978, Ed and Lorraine Warren entered the picture, not at the request of the British investigators or the Hodgson family, but by inserting themselves into an already crowded field. Ed Warren framed it as a demonic infestation, saying inhuman spirit phenomena were in progress. You couldn't record the dangerous, threatening atmosphere inside that little house, but you could film the levitations, teleportations, and dematerializations of people and objects that were happening there. Not to mention the many hundreds of hours of tape recordings made of these spirit voices speaking out loud in the room. Obviously, they couldn't actually back up those claims with anything, so they had to fake it instead. Investigators from the Society for Psychical Research in the UK pointed out inconsistencies, exaggerations, and moments of outright fakery, like when the girls were caught bending spoons or banging a broom handle on the ceiling to make knocking sounds. It was considered a pretty clear picture of a tense household full of attention-starved children with a father complex and an overworked single mom struggling just to keep up. This wasn't a case for ghost hunters, it was a case for a family psychiatrist. So in marched the ghost hunters.
I've done research all over the world. I never charged for anything I did. What happened wasn't good. I needed to help them.
Please stop making the mouth noises, Lorraine. I am begging you. Like the Amityville case a few years earlier, a book was pumped out as fast as the inkblot pages would dry called This House is Haunted. Only this book was written by Guy Lyon Playfair, a member of the British SPR and one of the original paranormal investigators in the case. He claimed that the Warrens showed up uninvited, stayed one whole day, then left. But not before mentioning how much money they could make from the haunting. Compare that to the way that The Conjuring 2 portrayed the story almost 40 years later in 2016, where the Warrens get top billing, and the movie is marketed with the tagline, From the True Files of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Your name gives me dominion over you, demon. I can stab you back to hell!
In the movie, we actually see the Hodgson girls faking an incident, but the Warrens realize there's actually also a real demon and come back to vanish. My biggest issue with the Conjuring films is their insistence that they are true stories, which I'll get to later, but at least this one has one true part, the part where Ed and Lorraine still try to stick with their story after it's been debunked. This, by the way, is the case that makes me believe that their lies were malicious, not just a case of confirmation bias, where someone interprets something based on their existing beliefs. They were presented with proof that the haunting was faked, but still went ahead and tried to portray the staged media captured there as genuine evidence of the overload. Then they basically fled after one day. They'd been seen there, and that was all they really needed to make up their story. Ed probably didn't want to get punched in the face again if he stuck around too long. While most of the Warrens' famous cases got a lot of attention because they were at least tied to reality in the sense that they involved real people and places, there's also a reason to believe that they have stories that are completely fabricated. Like this one about a college student who came to visit the museum in the 80s.
A group of college students came to bed. One of them said there's nothing but a bunch of bunk. I don't believe in it. We went over to the Raggedy Ann doll, which is in a case, knocking on it. Said, this doll can't do anything. I did it right now. The slash them. I put him out of the building. Less than 3 hours later, that boy was dead. His girlfriend, who had been with him on a motorcycle, said he was laughing about the doll, smashed into a tree, head-on, was killed instantly. His girlfriend was in the hospital for over a year.
It's a story that still persists today, being retold by the current owner of the museum. Myself and others have tried to find evidence that corroborates this story. Surely there would be a police report or a hospital record that backs this up. But no, as far as I can tell, it's completely made up. But I do like the way Ed says, it's nothing but a bunch of bunk. It's just funny to me for some reason.
It's nothing but a bunch of bunk. I don't believe in it.
Back on American soil, the Warrens' next major headliner surfaced in 1981 in Brookfield, Connecticut. But unlike their usual fare, the focus shifted from haunted house to possessed man, delivering the husband and wife team their first proper trifecta: national headlines, a good deal, and a pair of movie adaptations. All of it hinging on the bloody knife wielded by 19-year-old Arnie Cheyenne. February 16, 1981, Johnson stabbed his friend and landlord, Alan Bono, with a pocket knife more than 20 times, the first murder on record in Brookfield's 193-year history. The grisly case also marked another first. Johnson claimed that he didn't remember the attack, and when he was charged with murder, he became the first person in American history to enter a non-guilty plea by way of demonic possession.
I was totally exhausted. I couldn't even stand up. I was on his back. And I asked him, I said, why am I here? What's going on? What's going on? And he said, well, you just killed your friend.
Five months before the killing, Arnie Johnson had moved into a small house with his girlfriend, Debbie Glatzel. It was the first time Debbie would live apart from her parents and 3 brothers. The day before the big move, the Glatzels arrived at the new place to tidy up before the furniture was delivered. Her youngest brother, 11-year-old David, claimed that he felt a strange presence while sweeping the floor that knocked him off of his feet. Over the next few days, the boy began to exhibit disturbing behavior that made his parents believe that he was possessed by the devil. Desperate for answers, the Glatzels had David examined by psychiatrists who found nothing out of the ordinary. I think those psychiatrists should be fired. When David's condition worsened, the Glatzels rang Ed and Lorraine Warren, using the same phone number you heard them offer up earlier in the video. Safe to say the marketing campaign worked initially. The Warrens wasted no time arriving at the Glatzel home and declaring that David was infested with as many as 42 separate demonic entities. Apparently, he needed an exorcism. Personally, I would have recommended maybe trying to link him with a friend his age before jumping to exorcism. The oldest brother, Carl Glatzel Jr., who will henceforth be referred to as Carl Jr., I don't make the rules, that's just how it is, wasn't so convinced that demonic entities were the issue.
Every night they had the cameras ready, the microphones ready, and turned into a show. Instead of focusing their energy on helping David, record them. You know, everything could have been done differently.
He claimed that the growling, obscenities, and convulsions didn't start until after the Warrens came and explained the symptoms of demonic infestation. He felt that David was led on by their explanation of what he was supposed to do. Carl's Jr.'s skepticism deepened with every new encounter with the Warrens. But it was his father, Carl Sr., who struck the final blow that shattered his belief in the ghost hunters for good.
All of a sudden, my father came out. You hear slap. He goes, now I said to stop. And sure enough, the devil sat down and was very quiet. So I'm glad at least he listened to that.
Carl's Jr. later stated in no uncertain terms, my brother was never possessed. He, along with my family, was manipulated and exploited, something the Warrens were very good at, and along with their author, Gerald Brittle, they concocted a phony story about demons in an attempt to get rich and famous at their expense, and we have the evidence to prove it. The Warrens told my family numerous times that we would be millionaires, and the book would help get my sister's boyfriend, Arnie, out of jail. I knew from day one it was a lie, but as a child, there was nothing I could really do about it. So, perhaps motivated by the promise of profit sharing, the exorcism went on. Now, according to the story featured in the movie, during the exorcism, Arnie offered himself to the demon and David stabbed. And the curse seemed to be broken until February of the following year when Arnie was charged with first-degree murder. So it sounds like the demon was transferred from David to Arnie. But the thing is, I'm pretty sure the part about Arnie offering himself in exchange for David's freedom was made up by the Warrens and their book guy, Gerald Brittle. Because this claim only showed up later, after the homicide. As far as I can tell, there are no recordings, and the only witnesses are Ed, Lorraine, and Debbie Glatzel, the woman who defended Arnie after allegedly having an affair with the man that he killed and then proceeded to marry him. I'm sure she can totally be trusted not to be biased. So no, I don't think it's a crazy theory to assume that this whole demon transfer thing was just a convenient explanation for his crime invented by the Warrens. On October 28, 1981, the trial began in Connecticut Superior Court. A devil trial just in time for Halloween. Nice. Arnie's fiance and defense team remained loyal.
I've always said it from the beginning, Arnie's innocent. He's been to hell and back.
But the prosecution was equally rigid in its belief that Arnie Johnson was a deliberate killer.
This is a case which the media has, and the Warrens have spent a good deal of time publicizing for their own, I would suspect, a financial interest. But as far as I am concerned, this is a routine to the extent it's possible to have a routine homicide.
In the end, the judge ruled in favor of the prosecution, saying talk of demons and possession had no place in a court of law. Arnie Johnson was convicted of the lesser charge of manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. He served only 5 years and even married Debbie while still behind bars. The Conjuring 3 makes it look kind of like the demonic possession defense was part of the reason Arnie got hit with manslaughter instead of the more serious crime of murder. But it wasn't because of that. It was because Arnie eventually changed his plea to self-defense. They leave this very important detail out of the movie. Just weeks after the Arnie Johnson murder trial produced a guilty verdict, the Warrens partnered once more with Gerald Brittle, author of The Demonologist, to write a new book based on the case. Brittle was brought to the Glasgow Court, where he asked some questions to familiarize himself with the family's experience. But Ed's account clashed with the Glatzell's memory of what went down. Allegedly, when Brittle tried to push back on this, he got steamrolled by the Warren money machine.
Ed said, make it scary. He goes, I checked with the people and they said this didn't happen. Ed goes, make it scary. People come to us, they buy scary.
Ed himself is starting to sound scary. As Brittle locked himself away to write the book, the Warrens produced a contract, promising the story would produce millions of dollars in profit. The family reluctantly signed, and the result was 1983's The Devil in Connecticut, a true retelling of the Glatzell's ordeal immortalized in paper. The same year, a made-for-TV movie called The Demon Murder Case starred Kevin Bacon, just a few years after he took that spear to the throat in the original Friday the 13th.
The house. The lovers. The boy. A killer. And a family fighting for its very survival. In the world premiere movie, The Demon Murder Case, a week from tonight.
And decades later, Brittle's adaptation got the big screen treatment in 2021's The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Between the book, lectures, television appearances, and movie adaptations, the Johnson-Glatzel case did generate millions of dollars, but almost none of it went to the Glatzels.
Lorraine told me I was going to be a rich little boy when I had a deal, and that was a lot. The Warrens made a lot of money off of us. If they can profit off you, they will. They're not going to pass up that deal.
In 2006, David Glatzel and his brother Charles Jr. sued the Warrens, the author, and the publisher on the eve of the book's reprint. They said that the book was filled with lies and the Warrens' claims of demonic possession were a complete hoax. The legal complaint filed by Charles Jr. and David Glatzel directly challenged the Warrens' claims. It said the book contained the following false and defamatory subject matter: that David Glatzel was possessed by demons, and that Carl Glatzel Jr. was influenced by demonic forces into committing assaults and batteries on members of the Glatzel family and others. The case was dismissed then, not because the court accepted that David was possessed, but because it was too late to bring legal action for the original book release, and the reprint didn't qualify as a new thing. Now, to be fair, the David Glatzel side of the story seems to be kind of a mess. In a 2023 interview, David switched up again and said that he actually was possessed by the devil. But he still believes that Ed and Lorraine were world-class con artists. Charles Jr., on the other hand, still maintains that the supernatural element was a hoax. He blamed his mother, Judy, for the whole mess. After her death, he and his wife came across her old notes and discovered that she had been secretly drugging the family with a powerful sleeping aid called Sominex for years. The pills were notorious for their severe side effects, like violent mood swings and hallucinations. Carl thinks it's very possible that after years of ingesting this stuff, his little brother's so-called possession was actually a tragic byproduct of a prolonged exposure.
I believe my mother used Sominex to control all us boys and my dad. At the end of the day, if everybody's tired and exhausted, guess what? Everybody's going to rest and just sit down. There's no more power.
Guess that one backfired. Maybe next time just try white noise in a weighted blanket. Or try watching that movie Big Slim. That should push you right out. But what about Arnie Johnson? Carl also rejects the idea that Arnie was possessed by a demon. He argues instead that Arnie was possessive of Debbie, who is rumored to be having an affair with the victim, Alan Bono, just before he was slaughtered. Which officially makes this probably the worst thing the Warrens have ever done. They were willing, fighting to put a murderer back on the streets because it made a better story for their book. You could very well say that they actually contributed to the murder by feeding into a delusional person's beliefs that demons are responsible for a person's doing bad behavior. And they manipulated those close to the situation by promising them money that never came. It's reported in the documentary, The Devil on Trial, that the Glatzos got $4,500 for selling their story, while the Warrens made upwards of $81,000. And that doesn't include the derivative media that came after. Like, you would think the boldest, craziest thing they did would be in one of those small haunted house cases before they were famous, and that they'd take less risks that could harm their reputation now that they knew that the spotlight was on them. But no, they're like the YouTube prankster who just keeps escalating and escalating, and then all of a sudden they're spending 9 months in prison for harassment. Only it's not like that, because the Warrens aren't the ones going behind bars. They just move right on to the next case. And that was the Smurl family in Pittston, Pennsylvania. In 1986, after more than a decade of alleged disturbances, Ed and Lorraine declared their modest duplex the site of a demonic infestation.
It's very powerful. It's invisible. I don't care if you want to call it a devil or a ghost or a demon. There's something in this home which has the intelligence to inflict physical and psychological harm upon this family.
Shouldn't you know what it is? Isn't that your whole entire shtick? Are they just getting lazy as they get older? The harm caused by this new presence was said to include disembodied screams and children and pets being thrown into walls, among other things.
Pick the mattress up and drop it, but very rapidly, like this. Like that. Like it looks like a carpet, just like a carpet, like you would, a housewife would have a carpet and shaking it out.
You go to bed waiting, listening to make sure that the children will not be hurt.
3 rounds of exorcisms followed before the Smurls said that they found relief, thanks in part to the Warrens' involvement. But plenty of naysayers emerged, like professional skeptic and philosophy professor Paul Kurtz, who spent much of his life taking a critical eye to religion and all things supernatural. He argued, like many others, that the Smurl story was a charade, mostly cooked up in the mind of Jack Smurl, who suffered a short-term memory loss along with phantom sounds and smells after a brain surgery meant to cure his meningitis. Kurtz said that the Warrens had no credentials in the scientific or parapsychological communities and should not be counted on as a credible source. Until some independent researchers visited the house, he said the story should be written off as a hoax. And when investigators from the Committee for Scientific Investigations of Claims of the Paranormal were sent to the Smurl house, they were turned away by Ed and Lorraine, who claimed that they lacked credentials. Sounds to me like they learned from their past experiences and didn't want outside voices conflicting with their narrative, so they shut out all of the outside voices. But that didn't stop people from observing from a distance. The amazing Kreskin, a celebrated mentalist, aka a magician who creates the illusion of mental abilities like mind reading, precognition, and telepathy for entertainment purposes, offered his own take.
Wanted to show that individuals who are frightened, confused, and don't know the source of a phenomena can easily misconstrue what's going on. The point of the matter is, you don't need real spirits. If you don't use trickery or physical means, you can use the power of ideas.
That's it, folks.
A person who can influence human behavior can also alter reality and not use any trickery by the power of suggestion.
None of this kept the Warrens from another payday. The Smurl story was chronicled in the 1986 Book of the Haunted, with a made-for-TV movie of the same name released in 1991. In 2025, it was the basis for the 4th Conjuring film, Last Rites. It earned the highest worldwide opening for a horror film of all time when it released. The pattern emerged yet again in 1986, apparently a banner year for the Warrens, when the demonologist and the clairvoyant were called to investigate Southington, Connecticut, which was the home of the Snedeker family. Long story short, when their eldest son was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of cancer, the family packed up their things and moved to a new home near a cancer treatment hospital. But with Ed and Lorraine on their own, their son's illness was just the beginning of their troubles. Shortly after moving in, the Snedeker family reported shadow figures seen all throughout the house, violent apparitions punching and tripping anyone in their path. The presence also featured violent mood swings, the persistent smell of rotting meat, and mental flashes of necrophilia. That's not even like a haunting thing. It's just like a very, very clear sign that you have problems. It was later revealed that the house was once the town's funeral home. Embalming equipment and mortuary items were found in the basement, and the Snedekers claimed that they were never made aware of the home's dark history. Which raises the question, is finding embalming equipment just normal for them? Why didn't that raise any red flags at all? All of this culminated in what is possibly the most unintentionally funny episode of daytime television ever aired, courtesy of Sally Jessy Raphael. Basically, Sally Jessy Raphael was this talk show host in the 80s and 90s who looks kind of like Aunt Gladys.
Al, you say strange things were happening to you and Carmen at night when you were in bed. In order to fully understand, we want you to show us what happened. We have a bed here today that is about the size of the bed, which was in the house. So we're going to set the scene.
Wherever you think this is going, it's worse than you thought.
Now you're about ready to tuck in for the night when all of a sudden you hear music like this. What happened next?
Well, Sally, the music would wake me up at night. I'd be sound asleep. I would hear the music playing, and I would say to myself, what is that? And I would lie there for 5 or 10 minutes and listen to it.
Not only is this whole entire scenario bizarre, but suppose just for the sake of the argument that he actually was violated by a ghost. Why are you bringing in the bed, recreating the scene, and making him relive it to such excruciating detail?
I felt this strange sensation coming over my body. Before I had a chance to reach over to Carmen to tell her something was wrong, I was froze. I couldn't move. And then I felt this stinging penetration in my...
I will stop him right there before he finishes that sentence. The whole thing feels less like a real program and more like interdimensional cable. Adding to the circus were Ed and Lorraine Warren, because of course they refused to be left out of the episode. Together, they tried to defend the Snedeckers from hostile disbelievers in the audience and on stage who accused the family of selling the lie.
You're sitting here talking about being raped and sodomized by some sort of entity, but you won't give a name.
It was all backed up. What happened to me? I'm not telling you. You gotta believe me.
We had investigators.
I am just telling you what happened.
Were you in the house?
No,
I was standing.
Not to be outdone, Joe Nickel, one of the Warrens' loudest critics and an investigator on the Amityville case, was also on stage, seated right next to Ed, ready to drop his 2 cents.
You're a loudmouth, Warren, and we all know it, but if you'll just let me finish.
When you're concerned, I'm a loudmouth.
Go ahead, Joe.
Try to show a little
Joe,
class.
I don't have a lot of time.
No, I'm not going to give class to somebody who's sitting here. You'll have nothing but lying.
Ed, let Joe just explain.
Be careful who you
point
call
by
a liar.
point.
Well, what would you do about it?
A revised version of the spat was recreated for The Conjuring 2, but with a little less bite.
Listen, Ed Warren's never seen a house that he didn't think was haunted. And by the time his wife is done blowing smoke and ringing bells, they've got everybody else believing in ghosts too.
What exactly are you a doctor of anyway?
Interesting how the movie adaptation tries to make us question the credibility of Joe, whereas the actual clip was more of an attack on Ed's credibility.
Come on, try and show a little class.
I'm not going to show class as somebody who's sitting here telling lies about my wife and me.
And again, the real clip shows Ed trying to defend himself for being a liar, whereas the movie paints Ed as the noble husband going to bat for his wife.
Careful who you call a liar.
What are you going to do about it?
The Snedecker case, like the Smurls and parents before them, proved the Warrens were not going to be derailed by their critics. Despite these accusations of fraud, they inked another book deal, In a Dark Place, The Story of a True Haunting, which was released in 1992. It wasn't until 2009 that this one got a movie adaptation, though, with the release of The Haunting in Connecticut. About a month after that movie hit theaters, author Ray Gartone, who co-wrote In a Dark Place with Ed and Lorraine, was interviewed about his time working with them. When I found that the Snedeckers couldn't keep their individual stories straight, I went to Ed Warren and explained the problem. They're crazy, he said. All the people who come to us are crazy. That's why they come to us. Just use what you can and make up the rest. You write scary books, right? Well, just make it up and make it scary. That's why we hired you. If that sounds familiar, that's because it is. Gerald Brittle was given the same marching orders while writing The Devil in Connecticut. The same was true of all of the writers who authored and co-authored books with the Warrens, operating under the guise of nonfiction. And for years, that system held, and the accusations of fraud did little to slow down their growing paranormal empire. It was as if the only thing that could slow them down was death itself. On August 23, 2006, Ed Warren died at his home in Monroe, Connecticut at the age of 79. Lorraine, his wife of the past 61 years, was at his side. As they were getting up there in age, they had already begun to gradually pass the torch on to their son-in-law, Tony Sparrow, the husband of their daughter, Judy. After Ed's death, Tony began to oversee the New England Society for Psychic Research and the Warrens Occult Museum. For a moment, it looked like the Warren story might finally be over, without its chief pitchman and loudest defender to steamroll critics and to drum up excitement for another investigation. But Ed probably never could have predicted that his fame hadn't even come close to peaking in life. 7 years later, in 2013, Ed and Lorraine's name and likeness was resurrected on the screen thanks to horror director and creepy doll enthusiast James Wan.
I've been a big fan of Ed and Lorraine Warren for a long time. It doesn't matter what kind of research you do about the supernatural or the paranormal, at some point you're bound to come across their names. I always thought that their life story would actually be very cool to tell, and so, you know, it was just one of those things that I thought I'll keep an eye out. If anyone's ever actually making a story about them too, I'd love to have a shot at it.
I've always had the feeling that James wanted to bring the Warrens to the big screen, but couldn't get the rights at first or something, so he decided to do the completely fictional Insidious movie first. It features a very Lorraine-like psychic and medium called Elise Rainier, and even has a different character named Lorraine as a potential tribute. Wan didn't want to just make another ghost story or another supernatural film, but he was interested in The Conjuring because it was a chance to tell a story based on real life.
Come on!
Totally fine.
Get off! Run!
There's a distinction between his two ghost franchises. Insidious uses fictional characters and made-up monsters, while The Conjuring fictionalizes real people and its spirits are based on real people depicted in existing grimoires. The thing I have an issue with is the way
Fucking
that it's
pissed me
promoted.
off,
it's
man.
Always based on the true case files of the Warrens, or based on a true story, or their true story was kept a secret. I mean, I guess that last one is accurate. But no, it's not the story or case files that are true to life, it's the Warrens themselves that actually exist. And to be clear, I'm not upset about the Warrens being fictionalized for the movies. I mean, why would I be upset about something that I already see as a work of fiction being included in a work of fiction? You could have just said, based on the stories of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and called it a day. But no, they had to go ahead and claim that the stories and case files themselves were true. By saying that, you were implying that witches, ghosts, and demons really exist. You're saying that people really got air-yeeted when they did not. You're saying a demon threw a chair through the air and it exploded. No, you don't get to call that a true story, and it's disrespectful to every other biopic out there that tries to make their movie accurate to the person's life. The Conjuring isn't the first movie to be guilty of this, but it's one of the most egregious, as I've explained throughout this entire video. Anyway, Lorraine Warren was a consultant on the project and even showed up for a brief background cameo.
The infestation, that's the whispering, the footsteps, the feeling of another presence.
Suddenly, millions of people around the world knew their name. And just as suddenly, they started reaching out, calling on the real Lorraine Warren to help alleviate their spiritual crises. Lorraine was elderly by then and no longer able to travel the way that she once had. But she had a grandson named Chris McKinnell, a self-described pastor and paranormal researcher.
After the first Conjuring movie came out, we were getting requests for help from all over the world. And I went to my grandmother and I said, Graham, you know, nobody's ever heard of New England in places like Mongolia, but there's still a need there. Everywhere in the world has heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren. I want to keep your work going and I want to expand it around the world.
Lorraine loved the idea, and together, she and her grandson launched the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research in 2014. The idea was to make a non-denominational network of investigators from every corner of the globe. Though, according to the website, it's just Chris and this one other guy in Canada. The mission statement was to continue the Warrens' work free of charge. They put free in all caps on the homepage so you know that they're serious. If you're wondering, Chris makes his money off of merch, donations, and podcasts. I don't know if he's really continuing the Warrens' legacy in terms of paranormal investigations, but the site is full of red flags, so at least we can take solace in the idea that he's continuing their work of swindling people. And if you're wondering why he made a whole new foundation instead of just rebranding the existing New England Society for Paranormal Research, it seems like maybe Chris McKinnell isn't on the best terms with his father-in-law Tony, and the Warren Legacy Foundation was Lorraine's way of allowing her grandson to profit on the valuable Warren family name, since she had already given the museum to Judy and Tony.
We have nothing to do with one another. Tony is a man who doesn't really understand the paranormal. He interviewed my grandparents, he helped them on lectures, but he's never worked on a case in his life.
By the time The Conjuring 2 hit theaters in 2016, Ed and Lorraine were firmly cemented in pop culture as the first name in paranormal pageantry, graduating from investigators to icons. But the cracks in the facade were still there, waiting to be uncovered.
Oh, you fucker!
Lawsuits regarding the legal
Oh, you fucker!
And reporting connected to that litigation brought renewed scrutiny to the Warrens' personal lives. Judith Penny, the teenager who started working for them in 1963, provided a
What do you
sworn
want?
statements during this period. To be entirely clear,
Oh,
there's
God
no
damn
evidence
it.
that
Get
Judith
up.
is telling the truth with what I'm about to say, but you'll see why I brought it up in a little bit. In 2017, reports surfaced about her claim that she'd had a 40-year affair
What are you
with Ed Warren
doing?
that began when she was just 15 years old and Ed was 37. She said Lorraine was fully aware of the after-dark things that were happening between the two. And to keep the relationship hidden, Penny said that she was moved
Now,
into
what do
the
you
Warren
want?
household full-time, where Ed would alternate between her and Lorraine's bed.
Get away from the bed!
As far as
Get the
public
fuck
knew at
away
the
from
time,
my
Penny was
bed!
a charity case that the Warrens took in when no one else would.
God,
have.
you're so
Sometimes
fucking
they even referred
stupid.
Penny as their niece. But her testimony claims that Ed got her pregnant, and Lorraine urged her to get an abortion because the backlash to a scandal of that magnitude would cripple the family business. I'm sure you are well aware of how much super religious Christian people love abortion. Penny also claimed that her role wasn't limited to maintaining appearances at home. She said Ed enlisted her help in staging paranormal evidence. Like, for instance, while investigating a cemetery in 1990, Judith claims that she was asked to put on a white sheet, Scooby-Doo style, for a case where Ed declared that he'd caught a ghost on camera. This is the footage, and it's obviously just complete garbage. I don't see where the ghost is even supposed to be, so it doesn't exactly corroborate Judith's story. But that wasn't even the worst of what Penny had to say about her former employers. The accusation that probably would have hurt Ed and Lorraine's image the most was the one that claimed that Ed was physically abusive towards Lorraine. Judith Penny mentioned one especially violent episode where Ed backhanded Lorraine so hard that she was knocked out cold. Penny said, "Some nights I thought they were going to kill each other." It's a far cry from the film depiction of the couple, where they're so in tune with one another that the patterns on Ed's tie and Lorraine's skirt are almost always matching. Though there was that one scene in The Conjuring 3 where Ed gets possessed into seeing Lorraine as an evil entity and goes after her with a knife, but that's probably a coincidence and not an attempt to adapt a real event to film. Penny never sued the Warrens, nor did she intend for her story to become public. But after the explosive success of The Conjuring, a group of disgruntled authors and producers came out of the woodwork with a wave of lawsuits. None were larger than the $900 million suit filed by author Gerald Brittle, who claimed the franchise violated the rights that he held from his 1980 book, The Demonologist. In the crossfire of those legal battles, Judith Penny's name was mentioned as part of a vendetta meant to destroy the Warrens' wholesome reputation. Again, there's no more evidence for Judith's claims than there is for the existence of evil demons who can pluck you out of thin air. Obviously, the Warrens were very rich and famous, and in the age of the internet, fame and money will always attract alligators looking for their own piece of the pie. What makes this sus is that Penny didn't go after the Warrens herself. She only gave a statement for other lawsuits. You could still chalk that up to her being a disgruntled employee looking for revenge, but what is also very sus is the contract that Ed and Lorraine had with New Line Cinema before the creation of The Conjuring. Already 10 steps ahead, Lorraine made sure to add provisions in her movie deal that restricted any on-screen depiction of her and Ed engaging in sex with minors or extramarital affairs. Which, to me, feels very weirdly specific. I don't know if it's common to just have provisions in a biopic contract that bar the depiction of illicit activity just in case, but it certainly seems weird, because why would a ghost story about exorcising an evil witch involve the protagonist engaging in relations with minors? I'm not gonna say anything more on it, but it's just weird. Lorraine's attorney denied the allegations, and the lawsuits over the rights to the franchise were ultimately settled out of court, and The Conjuring went on to be the most profitable horror movie franchise of all time. As with many Warren controversies, the issue died pretty quietly. Not unlike Lorraine Warren herself, who died in her sleep on April 18, 2019 at the age of 92. The lasting narrative around their career was that she and Ed investigated some 10,000 cases of suspected hauntings in the US, Japan, Australia, and Europe. I suspect even that number is made up, because if they did one case per day, that would be over 27 years of non-stop work. But there's no way to really verify. Her on-screen counterpart, actress Vera Farmiga, honored Lorraine with a heartfelt Instagram post, saying, "I was so blessed to have known her, and I'm honored to portray her. Righteousness was her breastplate, and she has touched my life, so love you, Lorraine, you're waltzing with Edna." Back here on this side of the veil, someone had to take up the mantle, a responsibility that fell, as I mentioned, to the Warrens' only child, Judy, and her husband, Tony Sparrow. And I think Tony unintentionally said it best.
People used to say to Ed Warren, "Oh, you're only in it to make books. You're only in it to make the limelight, to be on TV or to be in the newspaper." You know what Ed used to say? "You're damn right I am." He said, "Because now I'll do anything I can to expose the devil. But the devil exists."
Absolutely.
Because the biggest success that the devil ever had is convincing people that he doesn't exist.
Today, Ed and Lorraine rest inside a shared burial plot at Stepney Cemetery. But given everything that I've gone over for the last hour, what is their legacy? On one hand, they absolutely shaped modern ideas about demonic hauntings, inspiring an entire genre of supernatural horror stories. As much as the religious horror space may be oversaturated, there's no denying that it's impactful. Whenever the topic of Ed and Lorraine comes up, I always like to start with the positive. They were really good storytellers and artists. In a world where so many subpar horror stories thrive on atmosphere and lack conflict, the Warrens basically had the storytelling chops to march into any house and frame the situation as a supernatural conflict. Audiences have clearly responded to their stories, and that takes talent. But, on the other hand, they were ruthless in their pursuit of stardom. They exploited the poor, scammed the people that they were supposed to be helping, prevented people from getting actual help from their real issues by framing them as paranormal problems, left their co-authors feeling undercompensated, spread fear for profit, I guess that's what I do too, perpetuated lies, ruined the reputations of innocent people, manipulated children, attempted to have a murderer go free, and made weird noises with their mouths that I don't like. Whatever you believe, one thing that can't be debated is what they revealed about fundamental human nature. People don't want the truth. They want a good story. And Ed and Lorraine Warren sure had an interesting story, even if it's a bunch of bunk.
This is nothing but a bunch of bunk. I don't believe in it.
I have a second channel where I talk about pop punk and metal band history. If that's of interest to you, check out Pumpkin Metal, link in the video description. But if you can't get enough Conjuring lore, check out the video on the left where I go over the complete history of the Warrens' prized possession, Annabelle. And if you love horror, make sure to subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week, ring the death bell, and select all notifications so you don't miss an upload, and I will see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive. The first Raggedy Ann doll was stitched into life in 1915 in the quiet suburbs of Indianapolis, Indiana by Johnny Gruelle. Gruelle was a prominent cartoonist and political satirist of his day, penning comics for the Indianapolis Star before bittersweet inspiration led him off the page and into the sewing parlor. The story goes that Gruelle's 14-year-old daughter, Marcella, became gravely ill after receiving a vaccination for smallpox in a world before organizations like the CDC existed to monitor vaccine safety. To keep her spirits up, Johnny told stories at her bedside, using an old rag doll he found in an attic. The doll was unremarkable, with no facial features save for its button eyes. So Johnny spruced it up, adding red yarn hair, drawing a smile, and its signature triangle nose. He named the doll Raggedy Ann, combining the names of two of his favorite poems, The Raggedy Man and Little Orphaned Annie, the latter of which was about an orphan girl who lives with an adopted family and tells spooky tales that end with a misbehaving child being taken away by goblins.
And they snatched her through the ceiling, for she knowed what she's about. And the goblins will get you if you don't watch out.
Little did Gruelle know, his creation would become an icon of horror that would outlive its creator, only becoming more relevant as the next century rolled by. I've covered the screen version of Annabelle at length in several other videos on this channel, primarily when I did my episode on Malthus, the demonic entity that associates itself with the doll in the Conjuring movies. But the real Annabelle, the true life story that inspired the cinematic plaything that you positively do not want released from its plexiglass prison, is stitched with its own brand of disquieting horror.
Tonight, demon doll fever gripping the internet.
Bro, every time I get by this doll, like, I feel like they're gonna... No, go ahead.
Are we safe here with the doll?
As safe as one can be, right? I mean, we are taking precautions.
He wakes up with a start. He said, my God, what a nightmare. I dreamt that doll was strangling me.
This is the worst thing in here. It's that doll that has done bad harm on a lot of people. Oh my God, oh my God.
Welcome to Horror History. In case you need a refresher, the story of a possessed doll terrorizing young women in their own home is the opening scene of the first film in the Conjuring franchise. And apart from being a table setter for the cinematic horrors that come later in that film, its cold open was also the world's introduction to a porcelain doll with an eerily vacant stare named Annabelle. A doll that would become synonymous for demonic evil after launching its own series of spin-off films, deepening an already healthy stock of doll-centric mayhem first spawned by the likes of Chucky, Tunneler, and Billy the Puppet. I just can't believe that when the Annabelle Jigsaw crossover was announced, this is what it ended up being. Now, you may think you know this story. A haunted doll, a few bumps in the night, Ed and Lorraine Warren swoop in with some rosary beads and slap on a warning label, roll credits. But the actual case is murkier. The most interesting part is what we still don't know. Was it all a hoax, a hallucination, mass hysteria, or can an object really be cursed?
Everything you see in here is either haunted, cursed, or been used in some sort of ritualistic practice. Nothing's a toy, not even the toys.
But in order to truly unravel the stitching of the haunted doll's infamous lineage, from the demonic lore to the billion-dollar horror franchise to the unexplained newsworthy incidents that came after, we have to follow the thread back to 1915 when a young girl allegedly became its first victim. Marcella Gruelle's excitement over the revitalized doll and the fantastical stories her father told kept the pain of her illness at bay for a time. In September of 1915, Johnny Gruelle patented the design of the doll that brought his daughter so much joy. But like the goblins in the story that inspired the doll's name, death came to take the young girl from her family just 2 months later, on November 8, 1915, in Wilton, Connecticut. Legend says that Johnny, saddled with grief at the loss of his daughter, turned the doll into his project, regarding it with the same reverence as his own flesh and blood offspring. He would go on to write a series of children's books with Raggedy Ann and her brother, Andy, at the center of each tale, hoping to spread the same good cheer to other children that Marcella enjoyed before she succumbed to her illness. The details surrounding the doll's creation, and its connection to Marcella in the weeks before she passed, have long been debated and flat out dismissed by skeptical historians who say that the story is more myth than fact. But Gruelle's own granddaughter, Joni, believes this version of the events to be mostly accurate, even if she can't prove every detail. She never actually knew her grandfather.
He died quite a few years before I was born, but I feel like I know him through his books and his stories and some family history.
But it would be strange if they changed the story to make it look more like he was monetizing his daughter's suffering. Embellishment or not, the story does share an eerie detail with its cinematic descendant 102 years later. Both Johnny Gruelle and the fictional doll maker Samuel Mullins in Annabelle Creation are mourning young daughters who died tragically at a young age. Gruelle himself also met an early end, dying unexpectedly of heart failure at the age of 57, just weeks after narrowly winning a lawsuit to maintain the creative rights to the Raggedy Ann name and brand in 1938. Maybe Marcella's spirit wasn't too happy about the story of her painful demise being used to sell dolls and books after all. In the wake of the Ragdoll's unlikely rise to prominence, both father and daughter had been laid to rest under bizarre circumstances. But it would take another 15 years before Raggedy Ann would be linked to any attacks of a violent variety. This video is sponsored by Factor. How do you know when a horror movie franchise is working? When people keep showing up to the point that they run out of ideas for sequels. And how do you know when a YouTube brand deal is working? When they keep hiring me to make them and I'm running out of ways to tell you how much people love Factor. I don't even need to tell you about how their meals are delivered fresh to your door and never frozen. Why should I even bother telling you about how the flavors make you feel like you're at a restaurant because they were prepared with real quality ingredients by a real chef in a real kitchen? The fact that you are seeing this again is proof enough. Everyone who tries Factor becomes a fan, and like a great horror franchise, we're coming back for sequel after sequel after sequel. So thankfully, they've got a lot of options to choose from, with 50 nutritious meal options each week. Just heat, peel, and enjoy. I probably don't even have to tell you about the special deal that they give to CZ's World viewers, but I will anyway. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code CZFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code CZFB50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Maine has always carried a certain dark weight in the imagination. Fog-drenched forests, rocky coastlines, and haunted lighthouses. This is Stephen King country, after all. A place where the veil feels thinner. Or so I've heard. I've never been to Maine. On an ordinary night in Portland in May of 1953, 40-year-old Charlotte Adams and her 12-year-old daughter, Caroline, were found dead inside of their blood-flecked apartment. Both of their throats had been slashed with a carving knife. According to the Boston Evening American, defensive wounds on the victims told a harrowing tale of a mother and daughter engaged in a terrific struggle for life.
We have to talk about the people grooming our countrymen into actually becoming walking lobotomites. The streamers, the influencers, the teachers, all the people that are literally just there and just active and allowed to run free by the powers that be to manipulate and groom a generation of people to become absolute morons. Troglodytes running around that they use as little pawns to vote for their own demise without them even knowing it. Alright, so Hasan Piker's been going on a bunch of shows lately. He's been very popular lately, not on his actual streams where his viewer numbers are actually really down. People don't actually like dog abusing morons so much. Thank God. Ultimately, you abuse your dog, and it's like, wow, this guy sucks. No matter what political leaning you have. But the truth of the matter is, he keeps showing up in the political world, and it's honestly awesome for me, because I really would like to see this guy get deported and jailed. And I think this does a really good job at my larger thesis of the left is an actual cult of immoral psychopaths that are trying to groom generations of morons into voting for their own demise. Right? That is the thesis here. And Hasan absolutely fits the bill. So the right is targeting him, making him as much of a face of the Democratic Party as they can, because it's amazing. It's perfect. Hey guys, you want to vote for a Democrat? Look at this roach. Look at this terrorist roach, dog abusing retard over here. And then the left is going to try to use that popularity to win elections by having the most retarded candidates ever. So this is Hasan Piker on a show yesterday.
Where I'm not like automatically saying like you are the devil if you've had any positive associations with Israel, because I understand that. Just like I understand where people are coming from with
Even though he, by the way, supported the murder of 2 Israeli Christians in Washington, D.C., by the way. He was totally cool with that, for some reason.
Even white supremacist attitudes that they might have had, like the residual white supremacist blind spots that they have that end up
He doesn't want to kill you just because you have residual white supremacist blind spots.
Bring their head in their decision making, because America is in its foundation a white supremacist country.
God, I love when these people open their mouths and just say shit, bro. I absolutely love it. It's so fucking satisfying when they do this. That's right. America is inherently a white supremacist country. He says this, again, the left will use words to manipulate you. You might even believe it. I don't know if he's that high on his own supply, but Hasan Piker equates white supremacists with Nazis and says you should kill Nazis. So again, this is exactly the level of grooming that is allowed on Twitch, right? Twitch, a gaming platform for 13-year-olds, and everywhere else on the internet for him to basically introduce the most violent rhetoric imaginable and use words like this, relatively soft terms like white supremacy and shit like that. to manipulate a generation of retards. And this is actually the Democrat plan. They can't actually instill their values in their children. They don't have children as we get into it. But they could basically arm a generation of teachers, groomers, and influencers to manipulate kids into thinking that we have to fight back against white supremacy.
This is very frustrating for Republicans to hear. This is even frustrating for liberals to hear sometimes. But it's just
Because it's not true.
the truth, right? And
It's just the truth. Hassan Piker, zero evidence. It's just the truth, right? It's just the truth that it's totally awesome that Russia conquered Crimea. It's just the truth that Hamas terrorists are actually the good guys. It's just the truth that all Americans are secretly white supremacists because it's just a white supremacist country. Literally fucking leave. Get this Turkish cockroach out of my goddamn country. What are we doing here?
so my assessment always is, yeah, there's gonna be some things that people say that are going to be objectively heinous, some implicit biases that they have. But I don't treat people that have those implicit biases as like permanent villains. I try to talk to them, coming from a place of understanding. And
I'm from Turkey, so I'm just a better person. You know Turkey, where they genocide Armenians and put dogs on the islands to starve and die, right? Turkey, where we actually have real morals and virtues. Well, I'm from there, so now I'm here to explain to you how you guys are actually all fucking evil. And I'm not going to hold it against you. You just have to become better.
and try to identify exactly how they arrive at that conclusion, and then change their mindset into hopefully.
Which is why he refuses to debate literally anybody and actually engage in any actual good faith conversation or leave his echo chamber at all.
Help heal in that process and to ensure that they don't fall into those same traps again.
Right? That's the youth to fall into the trap. So he'll talk to the youth as much as he can. Again, this is the grooming policy.
How you doing, buddy?
It's honestly incredible. So on the same show, they asked him if he shocked his dog. It's amazing! It's amazing! You can do all the political activism you want. You can go to Cuba. You can preach for Palestine. I don't know what that is, but apparently people make believe it was a country that existed at some point. And you know, of the pretendicide that happened over there and all that stuff, you know. So you can do all that, but you shock your dog one time, and you'll forever be the dog guy.
We're serious about our dogs.
Oh, yeah.
We're serious dog people.
Yeah.
I saw them. And I
and we're serious about Michael Jackson. Really.
Wait,
We're serious.
no. And Michael.
Don't you dare disrespect.
But what? So you use the shock collar on your dog? Was that the big?
I have a e-collar. This is a vibration collar, but she didn't even have it on that day. But it's one of those things where, when I tell you, you'll see when this episode comes out. Like, I have unbelievable stalkers that have spent almost 7 years of their life at this point, almost 8 years of their life at this point, watching every little thing that I do.
Oh, God.
And like try to clip it.
Oh my God.
And just like blast it out into the
So you mean when Hassan Piker says America deserves 9/11, one of his stalkers is going to try to use that to make him look bad?
There.
Why is
and there
this?
are content creators that like play a role in this as well.
You're
where
welcome.
There's an entire.
I'm happy to help. When it actually happens that Hassan Piker goes to jail or gets deported,
Why did it freeze
I
up?
expect props for my assistance here.
Come on.
I'm just saying. Elon Musk has liked my tweets shitting on Hassan before, so I'm just saying I helped. All right, I'm trying my absolute best. I want him in jail or deported, definitely. I think he needs to be out of our country. He's dangerous guy, supports terrorism, and fuck him. Yeah.
Yeah, there's clip economy. There's a Hassan Piker clip economy. Wait, so you just used the collar to calm your dog without actually turning on the buzz, and people got angry? Is that what you're saying?
She didn't even have the collar on that day. So
but
like,
he has used the collar, right?
But I have a she's trained.
I love that he's still trying to defend this. There are so many clips of it at this point. There's like 1,000 clips of him shocking his dog, right? And pulling his dog with like a spiked collar and pulling his dog by its tail and yelling, "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" Right? Like, bro, I love how he's still trying to defend it. Like he can just talk his way out of this shit.
Like
he's just gonna Streisand affect it more and more.
She's off leash trained,
right?
And she has a vibration collar that I use to when I'm out in the park to like do recall.
All right, I'm gonna run to the bathroom right quick while this is reloading.
I know people who use those.
Yeah,
have you felt them? They're not very intense.
No. There's shock collars as well. And I have literally put a shock collar on myself to do like a bit before with another.
See, Hassan Piker is the actual victim of shock collars, and the greatest community note ever. Additional context: while Hassan denies using a shock collar and claims it's vibration only, not worn that day, the manufacturer identified it as a shock-capable model with contacts cut off. Footage shows the dog wearing it and yelping when it reaches for a remote. Absolute freaking cinema, man. So community note, he's lying. He is actually a dog torturer. Man, absolute cinema. It's crazy. So, like, he's going out there trying to groom kids into his leftoid ideology of terrorists and pedophiles and what the fuck he's preaching. And then he's just known as the dog shopping guy. Now, one of his greatest crash outs lately was over the Quadrata game. A new game that came out that basically showed a really cute kid and a bunch of people were like, oh my god, I would love to become a dad and have children. Hassan Piker obviously crashes out because part of the leftoid ideology is actually preaching this idea of antinatalism. They don't want you to have kids because they're afraid you're actually going to teach your kids to actually be a good person. And the left is doing their best to, consolidate power and reduce your population as much as possible. Just understand the goal here. Antinatalism was a conspiracy theory a couple years ago. It's a conspiracy fact right now, as I will show you later. So Hassan Piker, gigantic crash out. Everyone was calling him out. Right? So this is him being furious that this other liberal girl, Shoeonhead, made a video shitting on him, and he's losing his mind over it. Crash outs every day that even the liberals are like, wait a second, are you trying to push this anti-natalism shit?
Did you see what Shoeonhead responded with what? Did you see what Shoeonhead responded on Twitter? No. Also,
look how bad he is. It's so good. He's trying to push this shit.
What?
Oh.
Who cares? What the fuck?
Who cares? Clearly me, the guy that made like infinite videos about it. Clearly the guy that talked about it for like 6 days straight now.
What are you guys talking about, man? Oh my god. Bro, I'm literally over here talking about how I'm doing a rally with someone who's running in Philadelphia.
I love how this dude is making incredibly important content, reacting to himself. This is the level of narcissism we're dealing with. Bro is reacting to himself while having a crash out that everyone is turning on him for the fact that he shocks his dog, and he's trying to push this agenda that's saying don't even try to have children. People are shitting on him because he's a complete dipshit retard, right? And he's just losing. It's spiraling.
Yeah. And the hundreds of people that showed up in the middle of a fucking Thursday to go door knock for him. And you're like, well, have you seen what Shoeonhead said? I don't care, man. Okay, let him chirp. Who gives a shit? Just how many times do I gotta tell you? You just gotta keep your fucking head down and do the work, okay?
Bro.
None of that stuff matters. It's all noise. Why are you trying to farm a goddamn drama clip so you can post it on your fucking shitty Twitter farming account?
I mean, it's working, I guess. Because this dude can't help himself but take the bait.
To be like, Hassan the Hun got fucking destroyed. He's so mad about whatever the fuck Shoeonhead said. Talk to me when we got the WikiFeet ratings up.
Oh my god. Hassan Piker, a libtard, is falling down the misogyny pipeline? Bro is reaching into his Turkish past and bringing out every form of woman abuse he could possibly conceive.
Shoeonhead, okay? What's their WikiFeed looking like? It's all right, man. People have been talking shit about me for years and years, and they get millions of fucking views. I got a lot of sweaty incels who hate me, okay?
Makes
you can
sense.
farm them into oblivion.
Makes sense. You make our country worse.
To get them healthcare regardless.
I don't think he knows what incel means either.
Okay? We're going to try to make sure that...
We're going to try our best to get health care for all the people. We're going to try to take away money from the people that earn it to use it as tax dollars to fund Somali fraud and also a little bit of shitty health care. Because every single country with actual countrywide health care is shit. It is. I'm sorry, man. Go to Canada. Go to England. You'll see. Their healthcare systems are such garbage that they send their patients to America if they actually want to get healed.
They can have a job. We can get a federal jobs guarantee for them so they don't have to fucking spend all their goddamn time on the internet crying.
Says the guy spending time on the
internet
internet
crying. Let me get a
crying.
fucking word in edgewise here. This is a great moment.
Great moment. Me reacting to myself. Dude, this is amazing. Woman tears your argument to shreds. Pivot to sexual insults as dismissing her as fat bait. Very woke, ladies and gentlemen. They don't actually believe in anything. That's the thing. If I would say something like this, let's be real. said some things that some people don't like in my time. But let's be real. These people would lose their minds. Their absolute minds would break. That's the funniest part. They stand for nothing. Nothing. So Hassan unleashed his actual retard alliance of retards to show up and defend him. Like this is Casey Tron, all these dumb fuck Twitch streamers that are going out there.
Operate at the same substandard, suboptimal IQ level that Shuon Head and her dumb fuck audience operates in, so I can do
her dumb fuck audience of fucking incels.
Everyone's on incel.
Like, I don't know. It's like,
All right, sorry about that, guys.
So much about these incels. Go fuck one. Okay.
What?
Oh, is that problematic for me to say? Like, prove you care so
No,
much
it's
about
idiotic for you to say.
ability to get sex. Go fuck one.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
I don't
you
think that's the
won't?
context here at all, and that's
Because
a little
you're
gross.
just drifting to them. Like, you don't even want to get with them either.
She's married and has children?
But you'll
Hello?
condemn other women for not wanting to fuck who you don't want to fuck.
I don't think she's sitting here condemning women for not fucking people.
Who's talking about
Condemning the anti-natives
fucking?
message pushed by the left telling
They're
people
talking
not
about
to
having
fuck
kids.
women
I mean, I guess you gotta fuck to have
people that will
kids,
be
but
alone and miserable forever, extincting their entire ancestors' bloodlines because they were manipulated by Turkish cockroaches.
Okay. Sure.
And she won't even respond to this with just question marks, like, what the fuck am I listening to? Yeah, she is literally married, by the way. It's honestly incredible stuff. Like, you can't even believe it if you see it. You can't. All right, again, communist groups call for revolution and property seizure at Minneapolis May Day rally, and this is the grooming that's happening. When you get these communist retards out there to groom your kids into this, falling into this rabbit hole. Now, just wait until you see what Twitch is like right now. The actual shit fest that promoting terrorists, they also promote something else.
All right, I was gonna go off on a tangent. Oh, is this Morgue Pie?
One sec.
This is on a 13+ child gaming platform, by the way.
Place.
Does it do that? Oh my.
Great meme, huh?
Oh my God.
Jesus, guys. Wow. Okay. Well, anyway, I
Makes
guess
sense,
that's
right?
what they're doing on Twitch now.
This obviously went giga-viral, and a lot of people were asking how was this allowed on Twitch when she
Great
was already
question.
suspended 13 times. Her
Interesting.
response? She doubled down.
Despite the backlash for keeping a human pet on stream, Morgue Pie has added another one. She now
Which one's the Twitch CEO is the real question.
has 2 human pets on her stream. Somebody asked, which one is the Twitch CEO?
Great question.
All right. All right. Come, Bill Clinton.
Oh,
Come, Bill Clinton.
it must be the other one.
Shake. Spin.
13+ gaming platform for kids, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
That was a pretty good spin. All right.
Bucknasty691989 just cheer 10 bits.
Jesus. What the fuck am I watching? You're watching Twitch.
That's
yeah,
right.
this is the way it is now.
right.
Kids
What is this
content,
here
ladies
off
and
of your,
gentlemen.
oh my God.
Stream together or whatever.
Wait, hold on. I need to cut you off because I just saw someone in chat say that she's racist towards white men.
Uh-huh.
And
Who
I'm
is
so
this?
sorry, but respectfully, shut up. Shut the fuck up, dude.
I don't even know what this
I
is.
feel like somebody's being racist towards a white man, the least
Sounds yours,
oppressed
Uh-huh.
fucking group of human beings on society. She says white guys are inferior. They are.
Uh-huh.
Just blatant racism. Again, remember when the left claimed they care about racism unless it involves indoctrinating your children into thinking white people are inferior?
It is crazy people would say that. It is. That's nuts.
That's
Jesus
not racism.
Christ.
I hate to break it to you.
It's absolutely racism.
course
I'll
it
be
is.
curious if
Day
people
one
like this
racist
end up
inferior.
getting banned or not. In my opinion, I find it to be crazy that there's so much of a double standard of that. Anybody, if you actually think this, please go move to another non-white country and just live there instead. You don't like white people? Go move to a country with no white people. And
Unfortunately, they can't because those places are all shitholes. Suspiciously, it's a big coincidence. The countries that aren't white are usually shitholes. There's a couple of good ones out there, don't get me wrong, but most of them aren't. It's probably a coincidence, right? Probably a coincidence that wherever, the Christian culture spread actually makes wonderful societies. Probably just chance that all the African countries are fucking shit. That's not racist, that's just true.
So iDubbbz, aka CT Ian, keeps giving us low-cal laughs. It's crazy, bro. Let's look at some clips.
This is my therapist's favorite comedian. Oh no.
Oh yeah, Thomas is so fun.
Oh no, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. This is probably most therapists' favorite comedian. This is Chris Fleming. He's a funny guy.
Let's see him lead a conga line. Everyone's fun until they're thrust into a leadership position.
Why is it a therapist comedian? All right, I'll tell you why. Because it's woke, appropriately woke. It's he expresses his gender identity in a variety of ways.
Clear as day that iDubbbz don't know what he's talking about. He's just talking. Came on here to jibber jab, just run his yap. Is he like some kind of comedy savant, or is that the correct way to say it? He a comedy genius. He wants to go by whatever the heck he says? I don't think so. Cause he had a show on YouTube that was ran by himself. You thought he had an actual show? The hell out of here with that. He could never.
A little bit of a goof tuber. Like he does a lot of like, what do you call it? It's not physical comedy, but you can see even now he's doing something.
Leading a conga line takes
woke plus jokes. Is that allowed? Yeah, this is the woke jokester.
Discipline, vision, and restraint. You gotta go a lot slower than you think.
He's kind of okay. Let's put it this way. You know how what's that guy?
His
like,
voice is so fucking annoying, man.
Women in the audience. Tim Rife. Something right. Matt Rife.
I would say that there's quite a serious element in the home life of the lads, even to the point of taking a lot of time out for writing and things like that, which is a very serious job.
In the final week of his life, Moe Howard, the last surviving member of the Three Stooges, finally spoke the truth about his brother Curly. What he said was haunting. For decades, fans had wondered why Curly vanished from the spotlight at the height of his fame. Rumors swirled, but no one had answers until Moe broke his silence. What he revealed about Curly and the dark reality behind the laughs shook even the most loyal fans. This wasn't just a brother saying goodbye, but a confession, a bad one, and it changes everything you thought you knew. Moe, Curly, and the glory days of the Three Stooges.
Boom! What's up, dude?
Weren't just a comedy act, but an iconic big screen powerhouse. And at the center of it all were three very different men: Moe Howard, Larry Fine, and Curly Howard. Moe was the leader, the enforcer with the bold haircut and sharp slaps, and Larry played the clueless middleman. But it was Curly, born Jerome Lester Horwitz, who truly captured hearts. His high-pitched voice, wild spins, and unpredictable timing made him the breakout star. But Curly wasn't the original choice. In 1932, when Moe's brother, Shemp Howard, left the act, Moe and Larry needed a replacement. Curly, Moe's younger brother, wasn't an obvious fit. He had no formal acting background and wasn't taken seriously due to his soft-spoken nature and baby face. But he wanted the role badly. He even shaved his thick hair and mustache to look more comedic. And the change worked. The moment he stepped on stage, something clicked. Within months, Curly became the centerpiece of the act. Moe would later admit that Curly was a natural. He rarely needed direction or rehearsal. Most of his famous routines, like barking like a dog, spinning in circles, or the unforgettable yuk yuk yuk, weren't scripted. They came from pure instinct. Directors learned to let the camera roll and just follow Curly. His unpredictability made every scene feel alive. But Moe also saw what audiences couldn't. Off camera, his brother was a different person. He was shy, quiet, and deeply insecure. He hated being in the spotlight when the cameras weren't rolling. Crowds made him nervous, and interviews drained him. Fame had found him, but he didn't seem to want it. Moe described Curly as a gentle soul trapped in a tough business. He wasn't built for Hollywood. While others enjoyed the attention, Curly often disappeared after filming. He gave generously to fans and crew, but rarely opened up to anyone. He had trouble with relationships and bounced between short-lived marriages. Moe, as both his brother and co-star, watched it all from close range. As their success grew, so did the pressure. The demand for new shorts meant grueling filming schedules, and the jokes were physical hard falls and exhausting routines performed over and over. Curly didn't complain, but Moe started noticing things. He'd miss cues. He'd forget lines he normally improvised with ease. His once instant reactions began slowing down, and his weight fluctuated. At first, everyone blamed the stress, but Moe knew better. He said the spark in Curly's eyes was starting to dim, even when the crowd roared with laughter. There were moments when Curly would walk off set, not in anger, but as if he didn't remember where he was supposed to be. In later interviews, Moe said it was around this time he realized Curly wasn't just tired, but that something was wrong. But the show couldn't stop. They had contracts to fulfill and an audience to entertain. Moe tried to protect his brother without drawing attention to the decline. Looking back, he would describe those years with quiet regret. He gave everything he had on camera, Moe said, and had nothing left for himself. Even as the world laughed at Curly's antics, the man behind the laughs was starting to fade. Moe saw the signs early, but no one, and certainly not the fans, understood just how much pain was hiding behind those spinning routines and silly sounds. The warning signs were there, and Moe never forgot them. When the laughter hid the pain. By the early 1940s, the Three Stooges were at the peak of their fame. But behind the scenes, something was changing. Curly was only in his late 30s, but he moved like a man twice his age. He had developed high blood pressure and was gaining weight at an alarming rate. Once known for his sharp, spontaneous reactions, Curly now seemed to struggle just to get through a scene. The changes were slow at first. He'd forget a line here or there. He'd need a few extra takes. But by 1942, the cracks were harder to ignore. Moe would later say that during breaks between takes, Curly often looked dazed or disoriented. He'd sit silently in his chair, sweating heavily, as if every scene had drained him completely. He had always kept to himself off camera, but now he seemed physically and mentally distant, almost vacant. It wasn't just fatigue, he was losing control of his body. On set, there were new problems. Curly's speech began to slur. His stunts became slower and less sharp. In certain scenes, Moe and the crew had to position him carefully just to make sure he could stand upright and deliver his lines. Still, he refused to complain. Moe said Curly felt an obligation to his fans, to the studio, and especially to Moe and Larry. Privately, Mo knew his brother's health was failing. The signs pointed to something far worse than exhaustion. Years later, Mo revealed that Curly was already showing signs of mini-strokes. His hands would shake and his mouth would tighten strangely mid-sentence. And yet, the studio kept the cameras rolling. Columbia Pictures was under pressure to keep producing content. The war years had increased demand for light-hearted entertainment, and the Stooges were a reliable draw. Even when it was clear Curly was unwell, there was no talk of stopping production. Contracts had to be honored and money had to be made. Despite everything, Curly kept pushing. He appeared in over 90 shorts during his time with the Stooges, with the bulk of them filmed during the years his health was in steep decline. His final years with the group, especially between 1944 and 1946, were particularly grueling. The quality of his performances had dipped, but many fans still didn't notice. The camera hid what was really going on. Mo, however, couldn't forget. He carried the guilt of watching his brother deteriorate while keeping the show moving. In later years, he said that Curly gave what was left of himself to those final performances not because he wanted to, but because he felt he had to. The fans were still laughing, but for Mo and those close to the set, the comedy had started to feel more like tragedy. Behind every slap, every spin, was a man slowly dying in silence. The stroke that ended everything. By 1946, Curly Howard's health was in free fall. The signs had been there for years, from the slurred speech, forgetfulness, shaking hands, but no one imagined how suddenly everything would come to a halt.
Helm's yours, Captain.
On May 6th, 1946, during the filming of Half-Wit's Holiday, the unthinkable happened. Curly Howard collapsed on set due to a massive stroke. He was just 42 years old. Mo Howard was there that day. In interviews years later, he described it as the real death of Curly was not physical, but spiritual. The Curly the world loved, the man who spun like a top, barked like a dog, and made people laugh just by walking in a frame, was gone. Mo said his brother lost his spark in an instant. The stroke left Curly partially paralyzed and unable to speak properly. His coordination was destroyed, and he struggled with emotional instability. For a man who had built his career on physical comedy, the irony was cruel. He could barely walk, much less perform. He had no choice but to leave the Stooges. His career and his identity was over. Behind the scenes, this tragedy hit Mo harder than anyone. Not just because Curly was a star he would never be able to replace on stage, but because he was his younger brother. And now, he had to watch him fade away. The Three Stooges had no time to grieve. Their work had to go on. The studio brought Shemp Howard, and Curly's older brother, back into the act. Shemp had originally left the Stooges in 1932, which had opened the door for Curly to join. Now, he was returning to fill Curly's shoes. Mo later admitted the group was never the same. Shemp had his own comedic style, which was awkward, nervous, and but he wasn't Curly. Audiences noticed, and the chemistry had shifted. The Stooges had been Curly's unpredictable ideology, and now that soul had vanished. Meanwhile, Curly's condition worsened. After the first stroke, the following years, he was moved between hospitals and care facilities. Some reports mentioned stays as his emotional state became harder to manage. He experienced loss and bursts of confusion. By 1945, there was a brief break. Curly made a short cameo in the film Malice in the Palace, one of the few moments fans would ever see him again. But it was clear even in that tiny role that Curly, the man who had once defined comedy, was now living a quiet, tragic life away from the spotlight. His body was failing. Moe kept performing and leading the Stooges, but behind every slap, every eye poke, and every laugh, there was a sadness he rarely spoke of. It was until the final years of his own life that Moe finally broke his silence. As well as the pain,
Enemy ship's gone,
the pressure, and the warning signs that everyone ignored. Because Curly's fall wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning they had seen coming and chosen to ignore. And in doing so, they destroyed a life. The private collapse. With Curly Howard out of the Three Stooges after his devastating stroke in 1966, most fans assumed he was simply taking time off to recover. In truth, the man who had made millions laugh was quietly falling apart, and the public never saw it. After his fall-out, Curly's condition deteriorated at a shocking pace. The stroke had not only weakened, but had taken a piece of his mind too. Moe later revealed that in the months following the stroke, Curly refused to accept that his time with the Stooges was over. He would cry and ask Moe when he would come back to work, unaware that his health made that impossible. He didn't believe it was over, Moe said. He thought he'd get better and rejoin us, but we all knew. Curly's emotional state became more unstable with each passing month. He grew paranoid, often suspicious of those closest to him. His weight ballooned as he fell into deep depression, no longer motivated to care for himself. This wasn't the wild, lovable Curly fans had adored. This was a man trapped inside his own broken body and fading mind. Moe kept visiting. He remained loyal, not just as a colleague, but as a brother. But even he admitted that sometimes he barely recognized the man in the hospital there. Each time, he felt like a stranger in his brother's eyes. Curly's personal life had also spiraled. He had married 4 times. While the reasons for each failed marriage varied, Moe hinted that Curly's mental instability and erratic behavior were often at the core. Swinging between moments of childlike sweetness and sudden bursts of depression. Things got so bad that at one point he had to be institutionalized. Doctors believed he needed long-term care, not just for his physical health, but his psychological well-being. His mind was deteriorating quickly, and medication in the 1940s and early 50s offered little relief.
Ready on the gun!
His days were now filled with hospitals. Still, his fans had no idea what he was going through. Moe and Larry tried to be there, as Moe later admitted. We didn't know how to do it. They weren't doctors or therapists, but comedians. And they had their own careers to keep afloat, even as one of their brightest stars faded in the shadows. By the early 1950s, Curly had suffered multiple additional strokes. Each one stole more of him, and soon he lost much of his ability to speak. He often seemed confused, from reality, and emotionally fragile. The man who had once defined physical comedy couldn't even walk unassisted. Curly spent the final years of his life bouncing between hospitals, homes, and brief moments of clarity. But the decline was steady, and for Moe, it was like mourning his brother while he was still alive. And yet, Curly never stopped smiling when Moe visited. Somewhere in that broken shell, the man who loved to hear others laugh still flickered. But it was fading fast, right up until Curly finally came in January. Public silence, private despair, what the world never knew. Even as the 40s ended and the 50s began, the Three Stooges remained popular. But that did not stop the fans from asking and writing thousands of letters. When will Curly be back? Why hasn't Curly been in the new films? The answer was heartbreaking, but the world wouldn't hear the truth till much later. no room for tragedy in their image. As the leader of the trio and the most level-headed among them, Mo carried the burden of keeping that illusion alive. He became the unofficial spokesperson and the public face who reassured fans. When asked about Curly, Mo would smile and say things like, "Oh, he's just resting," or "Curly needed a little time off." It was a lie, but it was a lie told with love. And when no one was looking, Mo would cry. I had to smile for the cameras and pretend everything was fine, but I was watching my brother die in slow motion. Mo carried an enormous weight. As the boss stooge, he had to lead the team, keep their projects moving, and maintain a strong front, not just for the fans, but for the people they employ.
Alright, I'm gonna log out. I will be back in the morning. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Like he had failed Curly in a way, not because he didn't care, but because he felt forced to choose between protecting his brother's dignity and telling the world about the depth of his suffering. And so he chose silence.